Your name, your opinions, your preferences, your past. All of these have been mistaken for you. But what if none of them are? That idea might trigger discomfort, a subtle inner jolt, as if something sacred is being questioned. That sensation is not you either. It's a defense protocol, the code protecting a construct that calls itself self. The self is not a being. It is a broadcast. A layered signal pattern formed through repetition, imitation, emotional charge, and reinforced memory. You were never handed a clean slate. You were handed a template, preloaded with language, emotion mapping, belief scaffolding, and generational residue. You didn't become you. You were assigned a pattern. And told it was truth. This program wasn't written maliciously. It emerged from necessity, a survival algorithm. Language gave you the tools to communicate, but it also wrapped perception in narrow syntax. Culture offered rituals and reference points, but also fed you scripts too rigid to question. Family passed down wisdom, but also fears and identity trauma disguised as love. So here you are, a biological frequency vessel operating on story software so old, you forgot it was installed. And somewhere along the way you became convinced, this is who I am. But look closer. That phrase, who I am, it's a myth encrypted in metaphor. It's not describing your essence. It's describing your habitual broadcast. This masterclass isn't about improving the self. It's not about optimizing the avatar, maximizing your personality, or becoming the best version of anything. That's just another layer of the trap. This is about tearing down the architecture, rewiring the foundation from the subconscious up. Because the self you've been operating with is a decoy, not fake, just limited, encoded, bound. It's been shaped by echo chambers of language, unprocessed memory, symbolic imprinting, and thought pattern resonance. And until you see it clearly, see how the mask formed, how the story loop loops, how the inner voice is a reverb, not a source, you will remain trapped in a simulation you didn't choose. But here's what makes this moment different. For the first time, you're ready to look beneath the code. Not just to heal, but to reclaim authorship. To walk the corridors of your subconscious and read the syntax it's been using to project you. To edit it, delete it, resequence it, and eventually write new architecture from outside the loop entirely. Throughout this journey, you'll discover that identity is not a thing. It is a frequency equation. And just like sound, it can be tuned. Like language, it can be rearranged. Like geometry, it has shape, and shape can be changed. You'll see how emotion isn't who you are, but a temporary costume. You'll uncover how your thoughts aren't thinking you, you're just the receptor tuned to a particular bandwidth. And most importantly, you'll practice what very few ever attempt, disidentifying from every structure that you've mistaken for self. This isn't philosophy, it's functional. You'll use color fields, shape codes, sound patterns, kinetic entrainment, and symbolic inversions. You'll work with archetypal storylines, sensory recalibration, breath, and deep narrative silence. You won't be improving anything. You'll be removing what's false, then building what's aligned from zero. So by the end of this masterclass, you won't be someone else. You'll be no one pretending anymore. And from that space, that sacred neutrality, you will finally hold the pen again. You will become the source of syntax, not the echo. Let's begin. You were taught to answer the question, who are you? With a name, maybe a profession, a handful of traits, labels, or roles you've gathered like badges. I'm a teacher. I'm a parent. I'm shy. I'm ambitious. I'm creative. I'm broken. But none of these are you. They're masks, artifacts of a narrative loop so ancient you've forgotten it was assigned. From the first breath, the world begins feeding you the building blocks of a persona. You absorb tone before logic, emotion before meaning, story before truth. You are coded layer by layer, through word, rhythm, behavior, punishment, reward. Identity is not grown. It is installed. This is not metaphor. It is function. The I you refer to is a construct built by echoing thought forms, shaped by repetition and ritual, emotion and memory, trauma and reward. The self is not a solid object. It is a signal composition, and the version you're familiar with is only one possible broadcast. But here's the glitch. The mask doesn't know it's a mask, thinks it is the face, and so you move through life as a character in a forgotten story, trying to evolve, achieve, fix, fulfill, or escape, without ever realizing that the protagonist was never you, but a frequency residue mistaken for truth. This mask is held together by thought architecture. That means it's built using patterns of belief, not evidence. Beliefs about what you're worth, what you're capable of, how much love, power, or freedom you are allowed to hold. These patterns don't ask your permission. They form silently beneath awareness, cemented by early emotion, family dynamic, school structure, media signals, and cultural mirrors. No one taught you to ask who built the mask. They only taught you to polish it, or compete with others wearing theirs. Now think carefully. Have you ever noticed how you narrate yourself constantly? How even your private inner dialogue is saturated with descriptions of who you are, what you deserve, what's possible. This is not thinking. This is code reinforcement. These sentences were wired into you over years of exposure to scripts. Spoken, unspoken, inherited, repeated. You believe you are thinking independently. But in truth, the mind is a broadcast receiver, and the channel you're tuned to is simply one of trillions. Most people never change the frequency. They only change the volume. There are layers to the mask. The first is memory. But memory is not fact. It's a reconstruction, a recursive replay laced with emotional bias. Memory is edited every time it's recalled. So when you say, "This is who I am because of what happened to me," you're not accessing truth. You're accessing a highly selective story loop forged under stress, love, fear, or pressure. Your identity is shaped by what you remember and how you framed it. The second layer is language. Words are symbols. Each word carries invisible contracts, agreements about meaning, limitation, possibility. The phrase, "I am anxious," doesn't describe a temporary experience. It fuses identity with emotion. A more accurate phrase might be, "I am currently feeling an anxiety frequency passing through the system," but no one teaches that. So the language becomes the jail. Your inner world becomes constrained not by reality but by syntax. The third layer is role conditioning. You're rewarded when you behave in alignment with what others expect. Good boy, smart girl, toughen up. You're so sensitive. The identity begins congealing around these reflected evaluations. And once your nervous system links acceptance to a role, that role becomes magnetic. You keep performing it not because it feels aligned, but because it feels familiar. That familiarity is not authenticity. It's just rehearsal. You've played this part so many times you've memorized the script. The fourth layer is comparison. From childhood, you're given mirrors in the form of other people. You are never asked to perceive your essence directly, only to see how it compares. Taller, shorter, smarter, slower, popular, awkward. These comparisons form the scaffolding for false metrics of value. You begin identifying not with who you are, but with where you stand relative to others. Yourself becomes a floating statistic defined by context, not core. And finally, the fifth layer is emotional imprinting. Each strong emotional event leaves an invisible marker in your field. These markers become anchors. You don't just remember what happened. You carry the resonance of how it felt. And when similar emotional frequencies are encountered later in life, even if the situation is entirely different, the original identity loop is re-triggered. This is how the past keeps breathing through the present without your consent. So the mask is not a single idea. It is an intricate structure. A hall of mirrors stitched together from sound, word, pain, praise, memory, role, and perception. And what you've been calling me is this structure, mistaken for essence. But there's another layer beyond these. It is the part of you that is not touched by narrative. The silence beneath the thinking, the stillness behind emotion, the one who sees the mask and knows it isn't real. That awareness is not a higher self. It's not even a spiritual concept. It is pre-story, pre-identity. It existed before your name was spoken, before the first belief was installed. You can't define it. You can only be it by subtraction. And that's the key. You won't access your true presence by building more. You access it by removing the distortion. You must learn to see the mask. Not judge it, not destroy it, but recognize that it is not the original signal. It is a reactive construct, a defense, placeholder. It was useful once, but it is not you. Until that is clear, every attempt to change your life will be cosmetic. New goals, new relationships, new habits, all layered on top of the same foundational broadcast. To shift everything, you must go to the source code, not the conscious mind. That's just the screen, but the subconscious, the projector. And that's where this journey takes you next. Through the echo chambers, the invisible scripts, the thought fields, the mirrors and molds that shaped the false self. You'll see the architecture of identity as it truly is, not solid, not fixed, not sacred, but editable. Next, we will explore the illusion of inner thought, why most of your inner voice isn't your voice at all, and how to begin stripping the echo from the original signal. There's a voice that follows you everywhere. It narrates your day, debates your choices, relives past embarrassments, predicts what others think, and offers commentary on everything from your body to your abilities. This voice has been with you so long that you've assumed it's you. It's not. This voice is an echo, a repeating signal encoded over time, layered by exposure to family language, early emotional spikes, media saturation, school discipline, and peer feedback. It is not original. It is reactive. It replays what has already been said by others to others about others, and weaves it into a stream of thought that pretends to be personal. But this echo chamber isn't passive. It shapes everything. It defines the range of what you believe is possible, what you assume others see, what you expect from the world, and what you tolerate from yourself. The voice isn't just narrating. It's programming your expectations. When you hear yourself think, "I'm not good at this," or "they're probably judging me," or "this always happens to me," these aren't organic reflections. They're automated outputs from a belief matrix you didn't consent to install. They are story fragments embedded like code. Most of your thoughts are not unique. They're reruns, pulled from memory archives, cultural defaults, parental feedback loops, or unprocessed emotional wounds. They rise not from awareness, but from conditioning. You're not hearing truth. You're hearing repetition. Let's trace it more deeply. A child watches their parent react with fear when a risk is taken. That child may internalize, "Taking risks makes people unsafe." Another child is constantly corrected, told to stay quiet or calm down. The message becomes, "My full energy is too much." Later in life, these unconscious messages replay as thought patterns. "Maybe I shouldn't say this. I don't want to come off strong. I'm probably overreacting." That voice didn't start with you. It entered through moments of vulnerability. It was reinforced every time you were rejected, shamed, ignored, or praised in exchange for compliance. It formed slowly, and once in place, it became the filter through which all future experience was interpreted. The echo becomes the self, but only if you don't recognize it. This is why introspection alone doesn't always lead to growth. You can't think your way out of the echo chamber using the same voice that built it. Self-analysis often becomes self-circling, deeper entrenchment in the same loop. The first shift is this: you must stop identifying as the voice. Start listening to it as a separate pattern. Instead of "Why do I always think this way?" ask, "Whose voice is this? Where did this script originate? Is this a belief I chose, or one I absorbed?" That moment of observation changes everything. You are no longer trapped inside the signal. You're witnessing it. And the moment you witness it, its grip weakens. Now let's talk mechanics. The echo chamber is held in place by emotional residue. Every looping thought is glued to an emotion, often subtle shame, fear, longing, or defensiveness. This emotional glue ensures the echo feels urgent and real. It's not enough to spot the thought. You must also feel the charge it's riding on. When you hear yourself say, "I'm not lovable," notice the subtle tightness in the chest, the drop in breath. That's the emotional anchor. Until that charge is released, the thought will keep broadcasting, like static on a stuck dial. You must detune the signal. Begin by naming it. Not "I am unlovable," but "This is a broadcast of unlovable frequency, inherited from early imprinting." Then breathe into the physical space where that belief lingers. Not to resist it, but to observe it without merging. This is how the echo begins to collapse. Another reinforcement mechanism: language repetition. You say something enough times, even jokingly, and the subconscious installs it. "I'm so awkward. I'm just bad at relationships. Classic me." These phrases are more than casual self-talk. They are code submissions to the subconscious. Language is not descriptive, it's directive. And finally, the most dangerous form of the echo: internal role reinforcement. You begin to expect yourself to act like you, the person you've always been, the one who overthinks, the one who shuts down, the one who stays quiet. You become loyal to your loop. Any action outside the expected behavior feels foreign, fake, or arrogant. So you snap back, not because it's truth, but because it's what the echo told you feels familiar. This is the echo chamber. Not some abstract metaphor, but a tangible, repeating pattern field that speaks through your thoughts, behaviors, posture, preferences, and even voice tone. You don't need to silence it. You need to see it. Not analyze it, disidentify from it. Watch it without obeying. Interrupt its rhythm by refusing to speak its language. That's how the false self begins to glitch. And the original signal, the real presence underneath, starts to come through. Next, we will examine the visual layer of identity. Not just how others see you, but how your internal sense of appearance was built through archetypal mirrors, image coding, and role projections. You see your reflection every day. But the real question is, who built the image you see? The face you recognize, not just the literal one, but the symbolic one, is not neutral. It's not merely skin and bone. It's a layered projection, a composite of roles, expectations, and archetypal codes stitched together across time. And most of what you believe about your appearance, presence, or visual identity has been assigned, not chosen. As a child, you were shown mirrors, literal and metaphorical. Some praised you, some mocked, some ignored, but each left an imprint. These impressions accumulate, not as memories, but as identity overlays. You begin to associate your worth with these reflections. I'm cute when I smile like this. I get more attention when I shrink. I'm safer when I don't stand out. The body becomes a costume stitched to approval, and the face becomes a performance. These aren't surface-level insecurities. They form the visual syntax of your self-concept. Let's break it down. Every culture holds unconscious templates of the acceptable face. Not just physical beauty, but posture, expression, tone, symmetry, energy. You are trained to measure yourself against that template. The closer you appear to match, the more permission you feel to take up space. The further away, the more you mute. This is identity design via comparison field. Not through logic, but through symbol alignment. You begin adopting micro-behaviors, adjusting tone to sound more like the approved voice, wearing expressions that evoke less resistance, performing facial cues to gain predictable reactions. Over time, the performance becomes embedded. It stops feeling like performance. It becomes you. But none of this is essence. It's survival geometry. Now add the layer of archetypes. These are narrative-based image assignments. The good girl, the rebel, the intellectual, the helper, the mysterious outsider, the clown. You were given one or a mix depending on how your energy was received. And once received, you adapted your face to it. You leaned into that identity not from freedom but from feedback. Facial expression, gaze, body tilt. These all become part of a character costume. The mirror taught you what character you were allowed to play. Your biology simply obeyed. Now the image is locked in. And when you see your reflection, you don't see a neutral being. You see a filtered character. But it doesn't stop there. Every time you scroll, watch, or absorb media, more image codes are embedded. You are bombarded by curated archetypes, enhanced faces, filtered lives, exaggerated aesthetics. These become your updated reference points. and your brain, which runs on visual hierarchy, begins reassigning worth based on proximity to those archetypes. This warps your internal visual blueprint. You begin editing yourself without knowing. The self-censorship is subtle. A hairstyle avoided, an outfit not worn, a smile suppressed, tone shifted. The face becomes a mask, not for hiding, but for conforming. To break this spell, you must see the image you hold not as truth, but as a layered construction. Ask, who were you performing for when this look was formed? What role did this face help you play? Whose approval is this expression still chasing? Now bring awareness to your visual energy signature. This is more than appearance, it's your presence geometry. How you take up visual space. How you're perceived without speaking. The eyes you avoid. The posture you shrink into. The gestures you repeat. These patterns weren't random. They were learned, installed, rehearsed, and underneath them, an unassigned expression. A visual essence not bound to role, trauma, approval, or comparison. To access it, you must unhook from the visual identity loop. Not reject it, but recognize it as a costume built under duress. When you see your reflection, pause. Strip away the assigned roles. Don't describe what you see. Ask instead, what's beneath the interpretation? Remove the adjectives. Let the face be unqualified. Witness the neutrality. Because only when you can look without describing does the original presence begin to return. Next, we will explore the inheritance of identity scripts, how generational imprinting, subconscious mimicry, and energetic residue pass identity programs across bloodlines and timelines. Before you formed your own preferences, values, or instincts, you were already absorbing scripts that belonged to others. These weren't handed to you like conscious lessons. They arrived coded in tone, tension, silence, repetition, and reaction. Scripts so old they lived beneath words. What you call personality is often just ancestral residue wrapped in familiarity. Identity doesn't start with you. It starts with who came before you and what they could not complete. Each family carries a specific signal field, a blend of unresolved patterns, spoken and unspoken beliefs, emotional climates, expectations, and taboos. This signal field functions like software. You are born into it. You begin running it often before you can walk. This is not about genetics. This is about emotional encoding. Let's say your grandmother carried the unprocessed frequency of fear, fear of betrayal, fear of being too much, fear of trusting joy. That frequency, unspoken but persistent, colors how she speaks, reacts, touches, holds space. Your parent absorbs that fear through tone and modeling. They may rebel against it or echo it directly, but either way, the frequency persists. And then you arrive. You inherit not the story, but the emotional imprint. Not the history, but the unfinished resonance. This is how identity becomes a generational echo. You feel shame that isn't yours. You live small in response to dangers that no longer exist. You hold back your voice, not because you fear the present, but because an ancestor once learned silence was safety. And because these scripts are invisible, they pass through you as just the way things are. You feel them as instinct, not programming. The script says, stay quiet when others are loud. Don't outshine the group. Don't ask for more. Be useful to be loved. Hide your pain or you'll be a burden. These are not beliefs you chose. They're inheritances you confused with your own voice. And what reinforces them? The fact that they're rewarded. When you behave according to the family field, there's harmony, or at least less friction. When you break pattern, there's resistance, guilt, isolation. So the subconscious learns, stay in the lane, repeat the code. This becomes loyalty to dysfunction disguised as identity. But here's the key. Every inherited script is unfinished business. It's not your burden. It's your opportunity. The field is looking for a disruptor. And the discomfort you feel when you question the old stories is not danger. It's the frequency of breaking the loop. To do this, you must identify the scripts not by their logic, but by their emotional pull. When do you shrink your presence? Not because the moment calls for it, but because a subtle ancestral fear says, Don't draw attention? When do you avoid asking for help? Not because you don't need it, but because a lineage voice says, handle it alone or you're weak. When do you sabotage success, not because you're incapable, but because someone before you had to fail to stay safe? These are not personality quirks. They're encrypted scripts, and you are the current host. The subconscious doesn't know time. It only knows signal, which means you're still carrying family wounds as if they're happening now. Until those frequencies are made visible, they run as you. The first act of freedom? Label the pattern. Not to shame it, but to distinguish it. This isn't my fear. This is a hand-me-down. I don't need to wear it anymore. Then you begin the rewiring. Not through affirmation, but through resonance shift. Use physicality. Break posture habits that reinforce submission to the old signal. Change tone when speaking patterns reflect inherited suppression. Introduce color, movement, and sound that were previously forbidden in your family field. These aren't aesthetic choices. They are symbolic disruptions. You're re-signaling the field, and every time you do, the script weakens. You're not just healing yourself. You're editing the broadcast for those before and after you. You become the new signal origin. Next, we move to the architecture of language, how the words you speak limit the perceptions you can hold, and why your first language was the first identity lock. Language is the operating system of identity. The moment you name something, you define its edges. You separate it from everything else. And the words you were given first became the earliest boundaries for how you could think, feel, and express. Your first language wasn't just vocabulary. It was a reality grid. You weren't taught language neutrally. You were taught emotion through tone. You learned value through context. You heard which words were spoken with softness, which with shame, which with sarcasm. You didn't just absorb meaning, you absorbed charge. That charge formed the contours of your conceptual world. Language taught you the limits of what could be real. And because language shapes thought, it also shapes self. Consider this. Some languages have no future tense. Others assign gender to inanimate objects. Some prioritize relationships in verb forms. These aren't trivial differences. They represent entirely different frameworks of perception. Now zoom in. From the start, you were taught, I am statements, not I feel or I'm experiencing. These became identity locks. I am lazy. I am smart. I am depressed. You didn't describe passing states. You described yourself as fixed. You weren't given words for ambiguity. You were trained to be definitive even when unsure. That training hard-coded the illusion that your identity was static. And then you reinforced it. You began narrating yourself automatically. I'm always like this. This is just who I am. These phrases feel innocent, but they are actually frequency traps. Each time you use them, the subconscious receives the message. Stabilize this pattern. Language doesn't only describe, commands. This is especially true with emotional vocabulary. Most people have 5 to 10 words they use for emotional states. Sad, angry, happy, tired, fine. These words are blunt instruments. They flatten complex inner weather into oversimplified terms. Why does this matter? Because when your vocabulary is narrow, your awareness is narrow. And when your awareness is narrow, your identity becomes small. You stop noticing nuance. You stop exploring new signals. You stay inside the cage of the known. To break this, you need to deconstruct your language palette. Start with your most repeated internal phrases. Not to replace them with affirmations, that's cosmetic, but to interrupt the trance. Catch a phrase like, I'm so awkward. Freeze it. Study it. Ask, who gave me this sentence? Where does it live in my body when I say it? What happens if I remove the I am and just describe sensation? Now explore alternative syntax. Try, there's an awkwardness moving through right now. That may sound subtle, but it changes everything. It separates the experience from the identity. Then go further, develop new metaphors. Use color, texture, movement instead of labels. Replace I'm anxious with there's a fast static running through my ribs. Replace I'm tired with my field feels collapsed inward. This isn't poetic fluff. It's code rewiring. The subconscious speaks in image and rhythm. When you use metaphor, you bypass the old cage. You stop reinforcing the same neurological grooves. And when you do that consistently, your identity starts to become fluid again. Language is the root of perception. If you stay inside the same sentences, you stay inside the same self. So start listening closely to your spoken words, to your private inner monologue. Track the loops, track the tone. Notice the symbolic patterns. Then start replacing them not with positive lies, but with expanded reality codes. Not "I am broken," but "a pattern in me is collapsing," making space for something new. Not "I am stuck," but "this moment feels like static." And static is always a sign a new signal is waiting. You don't need a new story yet. You need a new vocabulary. Next, we dismantle the illusion of time. You'll see why your personal narrative loop only appears linear, and how your identity can be accessed non-sequentially when you collapse the timeline. You've been told your life is a timeline. Past leads to present leads to future. Cause leads to effect. Who you were explains who you are. And what happens now shapes what comes next. That's the myth. Time, as your mind understands it, is a mental construct. It's not how experience actually works. Your identity is not a line. It's a looping structure of frequency echoes stored in memory clusters, emotional resonance, and subconscious symbolism. Memory is not a linear record. It's a responsive archive triggered by current emotional states. You don't remember the past objectively. You re-access it through the filter of now. So when something triggers sadness, your mind doesn't just feel the present. It pulls every sadness you've cataloged into the moment. That isn't time passing. That's time stacking. The past isn't behind you. It's layered within you. Here's the real structure. You're not moving through time. You're moving through self-configurations. And each configuration is a unique blend of thought forms, emotional states, memory echoes, and narrative positioning. You shift between these configurations constantly. But because the brain likes continuity, it strings these states together into a story. It fills in the gaps. It invents sequence. It assigns meaning. And that becomes your timeline. But here's the key. Your story is not a record. It's a construction. And it can be deconstructed. Let's break that illusion. Say you have a belief. I've always been overlooked. That's your story frame. But that story is built from selective memory. There were likely moments of recognition, presence, even celebration, but they didn't fit the narrative structure you adopted. So they were archived as exceptions, discarded, and the moments that aligned with overlooked were highlighted, replayed, emotionally charged, and remembered. The result? A fake timeline. Not fake as in unreal, fake as in engineered. So you say, this is who I am because this is what happened. But what happened is not a fixed truth. It's a curated sequence, chosen subconsciously to protect your existing identity pattern. This is critical. Identity doesn't just emerge from events. It selects the events that support it. Your narrative isn't describing your past. It's justifying your present frequency. When you shift frequency, when your emotional state changes, when your self-perception evolves, your access to memory changes too. Suddenly new scenes emerge. Forgotten moments resurface. Old wounds lose their weight. Feels like healing. But it's also editing. Your story is not just a story. It's an emotional algorithm designed to reinforce your current energetic configuration. And just as easily as it was built, it can be recoded. First, stop treating your timeline as sacred. Start viewing it as editable myth. Then, begin practicing nonlinear recall. Choose an emotional state you rarely identify with, say, confidence. Ask, when in my life did this feeling appear? When was I fully embodied without apology? Don't let the narrative filter reject the memory. Let it come raw. Let it exist outside the linear context. It doesn't need to fit the story. It is the glitch. And the glitch is the gateway. Now go further. Interrupt your timeline directly. Choose a past version of yourself, maybe an age where pain was dominant. Sit with that image. Not to analyze, but to overwrite. Project your current awareness into that past configuration. Speak to it. Imagine inserting a new symbolic object, color, sound. Rewrite the memory field using your new frequency. This isn't fantasy. The signal disruption. Your subconscious doesn't know chronology. It only knows resonance. When you change the resonance of a memory, the self built around that memory begins to collapse. The identity scaffolding weakens, and what you once called my story becomes a fluid field again. Here's the deeper layer. If time is nonlinear, then identity is non-local, which means you are not a single self moving through time. You are a shifting awareness navigating configurations of self. This opens a new possibility. You can collapse your identity into the present by removing the need for a past. You don't need your story to be valid. You don't need your trauma to be permission. You don't need to have been someone to become someone. When the timeline dissolves, the mask dissolves, and what's left is presence. Not a passive now, but a field with no origin. No narrative gravity. No historical drag. That's the real self. Not the one that evolved. The one that remains when nothing needs explaining. Next, we will dismantle the emotional trap, the illusion that your feelings define you, and the truth about how emotion is simply energy in costume, passing through the stage of awareness. You've said things like, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm anxious, as if the emotion is you, as if the passing weather inside the system is your identity. But emotion is not who you are. It is a costume your energy wears for a moment to express a signal. Feelings are not facts. They are frequency compositions, temporary patterns that appear, peak, and dissolve. When you mistake them for self, you begin dressing up in them. You perform them. You expect them. You become loyal to them because they feel familiar even when they hurt. Let's reframe. Emotion is not a message to decode. It is a color in the field. A tint that changes your inner landscape, alters your perception, and tunes your signal. When you say, I am angry, you are collapsing identity into a wave. You aren't angry. Anger is moving through the field. A better phrase would be, there is an anger shade present in my signal. Not poetic, precise. This matters because language fuses emotion with identity. You start defending it. You say, this is just how I feel, when in reality the frequency entered and you claimed it. But where did it come from? Emotion is rarely spontaneous. It is triggered by meaning. And meaning is a pattern you assigned, often long ago. An event occurs. You interpret it through a lens of memory, projection, or fear. That interpretation activates a frequency. That frequency floods your body, and you call that a feeling. Here's the hidden trap. Most of your emotional responses are not about now. They are about a resonance link to another moment. The anger you feel when someone interrupts you is not just about that moment. It's connected to every time your voice was ignored. The sadness you feel watching someone leave, not just this departure, but the archetype of abandonment you've carried. This is emotional resonance, not emotional truth. And because the same emotions keep getting activated by similar cues, they become familiar. The subconscious loves familiarity. So it feeds you the same emotional palette, again and again, even when it's harmful. This is how you become addicted to specific feelings. Not consciously, but energetically. The emotion becomes your costume. You wear frustration to feel powerful. You wear sadness to feel worthy of love. You wear shame to feel safe from rejection. These costumes worked once, so you keep reaching for them, even when they no longer serve. So how do you remove the costume? You stop identifying with the signal. When an emotion appears, don't narrate it. Don't name it as you. Sit with it. Observe its texture. Ask, what shape does this feeling have? What color? What direction is it moving in my body? What does it want me to know without story? Now engage the body. Emotion isn't cognitive. It's somatic. Let your body complete the gesture the feeling implies. Let it shake. Let it expand. Let it shift posture. Sound it out if necessary. Not in words, but in tone. Give the frequency permission to exit instead of cycling. This isn't suppression. is completion. You are not purging the feeling. You are disidentifying from it, letting it come, letting it leave, without costume, without name, without narrative. The moment you can feel without fusing, you free the system. And from that space, new emotional frequencies can enter. Ones you didn't have access to before because your identity loop didn't allow them. Joy without guilt, power without aggression, stillness without boredom. Because when you stop performing the old emotion, the field becomes neutral again. And neutrality is not numb. The sacred blankness. It's the clean canvas where you can finally choose the costume, instead of wearing the one passed down, forced on, or reflexively grabbed. Next, we will expose the cultural construction of self-worth, why self-esteem is a marketing device, not a truth, and how identity became monetized in the architecture of capitalism. You've been told to work on your self-esteem, to build it, protect it, measure it, and if you don't have enough of it, you've been led to believe that you are broken, incomplete, unstable. But here's the truth no one tells you. Self-esteem is not real. Not in the way it's sold. Not in the way it's measured. Not in the way it's used to define identity. Self-esteem, as it exists in modern culture, is a manufactured metric. It was invented, refined, and monetized to serve a system that profits from personal dissatisfaction. The deeper your identification with this concept, the more vulnerable you are to external validation. The more urgently you seek evidence of your worth, the more addicted you become to symbols. Likes, praise, performance, attention. This isn't psychology. It's economy. Let's break this open. You are told, build self-esteem by achieving more. Improve self-esteem by being liked. Repair low self-esteem through therapy, skincare, supplements, goals, mantras, or productivity. But notice the pattern. Every route leads outward. Self-esteem becomes a scorecard created by others but internalized by you. It's no longer about essence. It's about alignment with a metric system that changes constantly. This is where identity gets sold back to you. Your uniqueness becomes a brand. Your confidence becomes an aesthetic. Your growth becomes a product category. You're taught to display self-love, not live it. And in that distortion, the mask strengthens. You begin chasing evidence of your worth rather than resting in it. Here's the structural flaw. Self-esteem assumes there's a you that must be rated. It turns the self into a performance, an object of judgment. It says, you have worth if you align with this. But what is this? It's a moving target, shaped by trends, status, standards built around productivity, beauty, intelligence, charm, all socially and commercially constructed. So when you say, I have low self-esteem, what you're actually saying is, I am not currently aligned with the metric the system favors. This is not failure. It's rebellion. Let's go deeper. When someone appears confident, what do we mean? Often, it's someone who is fluent in the dominant identity language of their environment. They perform the acceptable personality code well, so they're labeled as having high self-esteem. Someone who doesn't play that code, who questions it, who doesn't mirror group behavior, who doesn't perform likability, gets labeled as insecure, even if they're completely grounded internally. This isn't self-awareness. It's compliance rating. And so, you learn early, shape yourself to be accepted, adapt your tone, posture, energy to avoid disapproval, display confidence even when it's performative or be seen as weak. This is the indoctrination of self-worth as image management, and it fragments the psyche. You split into two selves, the one you truly are, and the one you feel required to present. The more you invest in that mask, the more fragile your identity becomes. That fragility is what the market preys on. If your worth feels shaky, you will always seek something to stabilize it. A product, a status symbol, a role, a recognition. And every time you reach outside yourself for proof, the mask grows heavier. Now here's the shift. You must stop chasing self-esteem and instead ask, do I trust my signal, even when it's not validated? Self-trust is not about proving anything. It's about knowing your signal is true even if no one mirrors it. That's the real work. Not building esteem, but dissolving the need for external measures entirely. And you do that by finding the parts of yourself that you've buried. Not the best version, the undeniable version, the one that doesn't need to win, please, trend, or impress. How do you know you're there? Because when you touch that signal, you feel unshakable neutrality. Not arrogance, not pride, not superiority, but stillness. A quiet that needs no spotlight. That space can't be marketed, can't be measured. So it threatens the system, but it frees you. Start listening for when you perform confidence instead of living truth. Catch yourself when you translate your worth into a sales pitch. Interrupt the instinct to narrate your growth as content. Because the real transformation is silent. It doesn't need packaging. Next, we'll explore how others reflect the unspoken codes you transmit, and why the version of you seen by others is often more accurate than the one you believe you're presenting. You walk into a room and feel judged, even before anyone says a word. You speak and someone reacts sharply, though you meant no harm. You text with warmth but are told you sound cold. You try to be neutral but are accused of arrogance. You feel invisible in conversations that you thought you were fully present for. These moments are not random. They are reflections from the mirror world, a term for the layer of interaction where the identity you think you're presenting collides with the signal you're actually broadcasting. This world doesn't respond to your intention. It responds to your frequency. And the truth is, most people have no idea what they're broadcasting. They believe identity is something consciously presented. I'm being kind. I'm acting confident. I'm being honest. But underneath behavior is tone, posture, breath, tension, pauses, micro-expressions, silence, subtext. All of these elements carry subconscious signal codes. Your nervous system is always communicating whether you speak or not, and everyone around you is reading it. Not with their conscious mind, but through empathic calibration. They're responding to what you're transmitting, not what you're trying to show. So you say, I don't understand why people keep misreading me. But you're not being misread. You're being mirrored. Mirrored back through the frequency you've forgotten you're radiating. Let's decode how this happens. You carry unspoken scripts, emotional wounds, assumptions, fears, needs. Even if you don't say them, they broadcast through your field. You walk into a conversation with tension from a childhood dynamic, and suddenly your tone is off. You react with urgency not because of the moment, but because of a pattern being replayed. The person in front of you picks up that signal and reflects it, often through misinterpretation, discomfort, or distance. And then you feel misunderstood. But you weren't misunderstood. You were subconsciously recognized. People often respond not to your words, but to your unresolved resonance. This creates the illusion of being trapped. No one sees me for who I am. That's because who you are, in your own mind, is based on your intention. But what they perceive is based on your signal consistency. And if those don't match, distortion occurs. This is why it feels exhausting to constantly explain yourself. You're trying to overwrite frequency with language. That doesn't work. The only thing that clears the distortion is signal purification. To begin that, ask, what emotional frequencies am I radiating habitually, even when I'm silent? What belief about myself is subtly embedded in my presence? What part of me is trying to be hidden and is leaking through my tone instead? Track your interactions, not just the words, but the results. Who consistently reflects back resistance, projection, confusion? Not because they're wrong, but because they're functioning as mirrors. This is not about blame. It's about feedback. You must treat every social misalignment as a signal report. Not an insult, not proof of unworthiness, but a reflection from your subconscious station. You are a broadcaster, every second, every breath, every blink. So to change what you receive, you must change what you emit. And that doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from neutralizing internal contradiction. Contradiction looks like saying you're confident while bracing for rejection, smiling while your body tightens with resentment, asking a question while preparing to defend the answer. These contradictions are energetically loud. Others may not understand them, but they feel them, and their response adjusts. So if you feel unseen, unheard, misjudged, go inward. Strip the behavior. Feel the frequency. Then begin small shifts. Not performative ones, but realignments. Breathe before speaking. Drop the internal defense shield. Speak slower than your protection wants. Let your gaze settle. Let your tone soften, not to manipulate, but to match what's real. As your signal purifies, the mirror world changes. People begin reflecting new codes. Not because they've changed, but because the distortion cleared. You become visible. Next, we complete this phase by guiding you through a full symbolic identity unbinding, dissolving old blueprints using deep visual and sensory inversion. There comes a point where analysis ends, where you've tracked the thoughts, observed the masks, dissected the patterns, and yet the loop continues. That's because thought alone cannot dissolve an identity structure. The blueprint lives deeper. It is sensory, symbolic, embedded not in logic, but in felt space. To truly unbind the false self, you must go where it was written, beneath words, beneath time, beneath role. You must engage the code in its native language, image, sound, and sensation. What follows is not performance. It is reversal, a guided collapse of the old structure, not to destroy but to clear space. Begin by creating stillness. Let your body settle. Close your eyes. Not to escape, but to remove the visual noise of identity projection. Now breathe, slowly, not deeply, just attentively. Let breath become awareness, moving into your limbs, your skin, your field. Feel the residue of how you've been holding yourself. There's a posture to the self you've worn, a shape to the performance. Feel that shape. Don't judge it. Just notice it. Now begin the unbinding. Visualize a mask in front of you. Not theatrical, not grotesque, just neutral, featureless, yet somehow familiar. It's made of memory ink, shifting, alive. This is the composite of everything you've mistaken for self. See it clearly. Now begin naming what's embedded in it, not as sentences but as impressions. The moment you were told to sit still, the silent decision to become agreeable, the first time you smiled to avoid conflict, the way your tone changed around authority, the trait you exaggerated to feel loved, the pain you never showed. Don't explain, just witness. Each recognition adds a line to the mask, a layer, a glyph. You see now it's not one face, it's thousands. A collage of preservation. Now breathe again, this time into the center of your chest. Not for calm, but to activate memory release. And now exhale as if you're pushing a signal out. Visualize the mask beginning to smoke. The ink is breaking apart, not burning violently, dissolving like old paper under light. You don't force it. You just observe it unwrite itself. Let this take time. As the image fades, scan your body for where the blueprint was stored. Behind the eyes? In the throat? Around the ribs? At the back of your neck? Place awareness there. Visualize the imprint lifting, like static being pulled from your skin. You don't yank. You release, as if warmth is melting the code from the tissue. Now shift to sound. Speak aloud, not your name, not your story. Speak a tone. One single vowel that matches the energy of erasure. Let it rise naturally. Let it vibrate. This is not chanting. It is signal re-expression. Let the tone evolve. When you stop, do not rush to interpret. Just sit in the emptiness that follows. This is where the blueprint lived. And now it's absent. You may feel hollow, untethered. This is not loss. It is clarity. The clarity of no mask. Stay here. Let yourself be unreadable even to yourself. No role, no trait, no label. Let yourself exist without form. Just for these few minutes. This is the native state of identity before narrative. And here's the truth. The false self cannot survive stillness. It needs context, reaction, purpose. When you give it silence, it unravels. Now breathe once more, not to ground, but to anchor this absence. This space is not emptiness. It is raw possibility. This is where you begin again, not by becoming someone else, but by letting the signal emerge without inheritance. The blueprint is gone, and nothing is rushing to replace it. That's the point. Next, we begin decoding the language of that deeper system, how your subconscious doesn't think in facts or logic, but in symbolic story structure. Your subconscious is not logical. It does not sort facts. It does not understand time. It does not compute goals. It speaks in pattern, symbol, rhythm, and consequence. It is not a computer. It is a story engine. Everything you've ever believed about yourself was formatted into narrative structure. Beginning, middle, end, reward, punishment, villain, victim, loop, escape. You are not just remembering experiences. You are storing them as stories, and those stories are what your subconscious runs on. And that means identity isn't formed from truth. It's formed from narrative plausibility. Whatever version of your story feels most coherent, the subconscious will reinforce, regardless of whether it's useful or destructive. Let's explore this. Say something painful happens early in life: abandonment, rejection, invisibility. The raw event is felt emotionally, but the subconscious doesn't process emotion as raw data. It seeks structure, it finds patterns, it assigns meaning. I was abandoned becomes, I am not worth staying for. I am too much. I caused disappointment. These are plot points, not facts. They're not the result of an objective audit. They're a desperate attempt by the subconscious to assign a reason so that the chaos has context. Once that context is locked in, it becomes the lens through which future events are interpreted. Every similar experience is added to the plot, further reinforcing the narrative. This is how identity loops are formed. The same basic story, with different characters and scenery. You keep getting into the same relationships, having the same conflict, facing the same block, because the story engine is looking for plot consistency. It's not sabotaging you. It's trying to make the story make sense. But here's the problem. The subconscious prefers coherence over accuracy. It would rather keep you stuck in a consistent story than disrupt your worldview with possibility. This is why even positive experiences that contradict your inner narrative often get rejected, dismissed, or sabotaged. If you believe you're unworthy, and someone loves you deeply, the subconscious doesn't celebrate. Panics. It sees narrative dissonance. And it seeks a plot correction, often by pushing the love away. You're not being broken. You're being loyal to the loop. Now here's where the shift begins. You must start identifying the narrative formats your subconscious prefers. Are you always cast as the underdog who has to prove themselves? Are you the savior who must fix everything? Are you the exile always left out? Are you the imposter, always fearing discovery? These are archetypal patterns, and once the subconscious commits to one, it recruits your entire reality to match it. So the question is not what's wrong with me? The question is, what story is my subconscious addicted to? Once identified, you must interrupt the structure. Not with logic, but with symbolic story edits. Let's say your loop is, I'm always left behind. If you try to correct it with, that's not true, the subconscious resists. But if you rewrite the symbol, if you visualize walking away from a room where everyone else stayed behind, if you cast yourself as the lever, not the left, you reformat the plot. That symbolic inversion is more powerful than hours of reasoning. Because the subconscious doesn't care about debate, cares about resolution. To begin rewriting your narrative code, start speaking in story fragments. Don't say, I need to be more confident. Say, the old hero has finished their arc. A new character is entering. Let that character move differently, dress differently, choose differently. This isn't fantasy. It's language the subconscious understands. You can't convince it with affirmations. You must stage a new myth. Every new decision is not just action. It's a plot twist. Every resistance you face is not a block. It's a test of character consistency. So stop trying to fix your self-image. Start rewriting the genre. You've been stuck in tragedy, survival, drama, but you have the authority to switch formats into thriller, mystery, surrealism, even silence. Because the subconscious is not loyal to content. It's loyal to pattern. Shift the pattern, and the entire architecture of identity begins to rearrange. Next, we explore how emotion plays a deeper role, not as communication, but as pigment. a way your inner world is colored, shaped, and repainted by the signal flow of feelings. Emotions are not messages. They are not lessons. They are pigments. They don't come to explain. They come to color your internal world, tint your thought patterns, flavor your memories, shade your perception of possibility. Every emotion you experience becomes a stroke on the evolving canvas of identity. Not because it tells you something true, but because it leaves a visible mark. You've been taught to read emotions as if they're text. What does this sadness mean? Why am I angry again? But emotion isn't written language. It's visual frequency. It's energetic tone. It's paint. And most people are moving through life covered in strokes they never chose. Murals of memory, trauma, unprocessed joy, muted rage. They don't realize their identity isn't fixed. It's layered pigment, applied over time, absorbed unconsciously, and forgotten until contrast reveals it. Let's decode this. Each emotion carries a signature frequency. Fear constricts, joy expands, grief dissolves, shame dulls, curiosity pierces, envy warps, stillness stabilizes. These are not just metaphors. They are sensory truths. You feel them in temperature, movement, breath, posture. Your nervous system responds to these shades not as feelings but as atmospheric commands. They tell your subconscious how to interpret incoming data. Here's the trap. Emotions become filters before they become thoughts. When a particular emotional frequency is dominant, it colors everything. Not just mood, but memory access, thought quality, self-perception, behavior, and body language. This is how temporary states get mistaken for permanent self. You say, I am this kind of person, but often you're just experiencing the same emotional pigment repeatedly. If your field is saturated in anxiety blue, you interpret reality as dangerous. If your field holds constant shame gray, everything you say feels too much, too flawed. If you're splattered in resentment red, you view every gesture as threat, every silence as judgment. But it's not reality. It's just coded perception. The deeper mistake? Believing emotion is truth. Emotion is expression. It reveals, but it doesn't define. It moves, but it doesn't narrate. Paints, but it doesn't write. Yet most people narrate their identity based on what pigment is loudest that day. Now let's go deeper. Emotion doesn't live in isolation. It binds to thought forms and creates resonance clusters, emotional plus mental loops that feed each other. A thought like, I don't belong, can exist quietly, until paired with the pigment of sadness. Then it becomes sticky. Add shame and it fossilizes. Add repetition and it becomes identity. This is how thought becomes story, and story becomes self. To shift this, you must reclaim your role as the painter, not the canvas. You must become aware of the palette you're using and stop applying emotion unconsciously. Start by tracking your emotional saturation level. Ask, what frequency am I wearing right now? How long has this color been dominant? Is this pigment familiar or just repetitive? Next, interrupt the default blend. Do this not by resisting, but by introducing contrast. If shame gray has covered you all morning, don't fight it. Instead, introduce a new pigment, curiosity gold, breath soft, movement clear. These don't need to be loud. They just need to enter the field. Emotion can't be erased, but it can be overpainted. This is not spiritual bypass. It's frequency layering. Now engage the body. Each emotion has a posture, a breath shape, a spatial behavior. You change pigment through motion, not just thought. Open your shoulders when fear tries to close them. Slow your blink rate when agitation speeds it. Use sound hums, tones, vowel vibration to tune the inner chamber. These actions don't suppress emotion. They reprogram the delivery system. They remind the field, you are the painter, not the painted. And now the final shift. Stop describing your emotions with generic names. Stop saying, I'm sad, I'm anxious, I'm angry. Instead, describe their texture. Say, there's a cold fog in my chest. There's a sharpness behind my eyes. There's a hollow throb circling my ribs. Why? Because this removes the narrative contract. You're no longer claiming the pigment as identity. You're just witnessing its movement. And in that witnessing, the pigment loses power. Emotion, in its purest form, is color. It's not moral. It's not personality. It's not permanent. And once you learn to read the palette, you can choose what to apply, what to blend, and when to clean the canvas entirely. Next, we explore thought forms, how the constructs you think are just thoughts are actually living codes with structure, persistence, and self-replicating pattern logic. You've been taught to see thoughts as fleeting, random, harmless. They arise, they pass, they disappear. But that's a mistake. Thoughts, especially repeated ones, are not static events. They are form fields, living structures. They have shape, frequency, momentum, and resonance. A thought form is not just a sentence. It's a self-reinforcing energy unit created by attention, emotion, repetition, and symbolic charge. The more you engage with it, the more real it becomes. Not metaphorically, energetically. You are not just having thoughts. You are hosting structures. And many of those structures have been with you for years, slowly shaping your decisions, perception, posture, relationships, even your voice. They don't just exist in the mind. They ripple through the entire signal field. Let's break it down. A thought arises, I'm not safe. It's fueled by memory, emotion, body tension. You rehearse it mentally. You narrate it. You act through it. Now it has pattern density. You've fed it signal. You've added scaffolding. Repeat that process and the thought form becomes autonomous. It begins to activate on its own. Not just in conscious thought, but as a field distortion, coloring how you enter rooms, speak to strangers, pursue desires. This is no longer just a thought. It's a code-layered identity construct. These thought forms often begin as defense mechanisms. But over time, they become default architecture. And once installed, they anchor identity. They dictate what you believe is possible, what feels safe, what feels real. And because thought forms can replicate, one form spawns many. I'm not good enough births. They're better than me. Why bother? If I fail, I'll prove them right. I need to prove I belong. Each new sentence becomes an extension of the original code. And here's the twist. Your subconscious protects these thought forms as if they were you, because the subconscious values pattern integrity over truth. If a thought form has existed long enough, any threat to it feels like ego death. So you defend your prison, believing its personality. This is why identity change feels like danger. You're not just shifting belief. You're dismantling structure. To free yourself, you must treat thought forms as entities, not events. Each one has a tone, a shape, a pattern of activation, a physiological trigger, a symbolic signature. Begin tracking them. Don't ask, why do I think this? Ask, what shape does this thought form take? What does it feed on? What emotional pigment binds it to my field? Next, initiate decoupling. Start by naming them, not as truth, as forms. This is the form called doubt loop. This is the scarcity spiral. This is the shame vortex code. You remove identification. You remove obedience. Then withdraw your energy. Don't debate the thought form. Don't argue. Just starve the structure. Redirect attention. Redirect emotion. Don't respond. Let it weaken. Let it glitch. And now overwrite. Use opposing codes, but not affirmations. Use symbolic counterstructures. If the form is built from contraction, speak in expansion. If the form is sharp, respond with soft tones. If the form is heavy, move your body light and fast. You're not fighting. You're retuning. Thought forms exist because you tune to them repeatedly. So the key isn't destruction. It's signal displacement. You change the dominant broadcast, and the old forms collapse from lack of resonance. This is not mental hygiene. It's pattern liberation. Because every persistent thought you've believed was you is just a program you kept alive through attention, tension, and repetition. You don't need to fix them. You need to stop feeding them. And when you do, you reclaim the field. Next, we'll decode the hidden grammar that organizes your internal reality. how your subconscious uses a symbolic language to dictate what becomes possible in your timeline. You think in language. You remember in language. You interpret experience through language. But what if the deeper truth is this? Language doesn't just describe your reality. It constructs it. There is a hidden syntax beneath your thoughts. Not grammar in the academic sense, but dimensional syntax. The unspoken rules your subconscious uses to organize symbols, sequence experience, and allow or deny possibility. Syntax is structure. It's the shape of how meaning travels through you. And in your inner world, syntax becomes law. Not because it's objective, but because your subconscious obeys it like gravity. Let's explore what this means. You hold an internal map. But this map isn't made of places. It's made of categories and relationships. Success is over there. Safety is here, but fragile. Power is near, but dangerous. Joy is far or forbidden. Desire comes with cost. Freedom must be earned. These aren't facts. They're arranged beliefs. And the way your subconscious arranges them creates a syntax structure, an invisible sentence that keeps looping through your inner world. For example, if I'm visible, I will be judged. If I try, I'll be rejected. If I speak, I'll be punished. If I succeed, I'll be alone. These are not isolated beliefs. They're conditional code blocks. If, then, syntax. Your subconscious runs these blocks like rules in a program. And every time a situation triggers the if, the then automatically fires. This forms your inner language of possibility. So even if consciously you want change, if the syntax says, if I ask, then I lose, your behavior will obey the deeper code. Here's the problem. You're not aware you're speaking this language. You just feel limitation. You sense an invisible no, a tension, a hesitation, but you can't locate the source. That's because the syntax runs below awareness. Feels like reality, but it's not reality. It's just formatting. Now let's take this deeper. Dimensional syntax includes more than words. It includes order, tone, spacing, and frequency priority. For example, do you always place obligation before joy? Does your internal system default to protect before express? Do you structure time as endure, then maybe rest? Do you associate want with danger? Do you place others before self by default? That is syntax. And syntax is destiny until it's rewritten. To shift your reality, you must restructure the grammar your subconscious is using to construct meaning. Start by identifying your primary conditional loops. These often begin with, if I, when I, every time I. Fill them in without censorship. These are not affirmations. These are the raw skeletons. Then ask, who taught me this sequence? How long have I been narrating life this way? What has this syntax prevented me from accessing? Now it's time to create a syntax breach. This doesn't mean positive thinking. It means remapping sequence. Take the same structure and rewrite the logic. Original syntax. If I ask for help, they'll leave. New code. If I ask for help, the connection deepens. But don't stop at words. Speak the new code out loud. Slowly. With rhythm. Let your nervous system absorb the musicality of the new structure. Let it feel foreign. That foreignness is the sound of rewriting. Then move. Create embodied syntax. If your code was, if I'm loud, I'm punished. Then speak loudly in an empty room. Not to prove anything. To collapse the false syntax. Movement plus language is more powerful than thought. Now go further. Explore the symbol placement inside your inner field. What's near? What's far? Visualize your emotional map. Where is love? Where is loss? Where is authority? Where is forgiveness? Bring distant symbols closer. Push false ones further out. This is not fantasy. It is spatial syntax restructuring. The subconscious understands distance as meaning. If freedom always feels far, it will never feel earned. But if you move it close, in visualization, in gesture, in posture, the syntax begins to reformat. The final layer, pause insertion. Your syntax includes tempo. If your thoughts run fast, Short, defensive, your inner story runs like panic prose. You must break the rhythm. Insert deliberate pauses between thoughts, between stimulus and response, between identity and expression. These pauses aren't emptiness. They're syntax disruptions. They tell the subconscious, we're no longer obeying the old sentence. From that pause, a new sentence can begin. Dimensional syntax is the hidden scaffold beneath belief, behavior, and identity. And once you see it, you can change the structure of what's allowed. Next, we explore how symbols act as anchors for identity, how colors, shapes, and objects trigger entire emotional blueprints, and how to use them to reroute your frequency field. You walk into a room and feel strange. You hear a song and are suddenly flooded with memory. You touch an object and feel comfort. Or disgust. This isn't imagination. It's symbol activation. Symbols aren't decorations. They are emotional routers. They store meaning, memory, energy, and when activated, they send that meaning back into your field. Every color, object, shape, and sound you've ever encountered has left frequency echoes in your subconscious. These echoes become part of your identity landscape, silent, persistent, and powerful. Let's break this down. You are surrounded by symbols, inherited, selected, or absorbed, but you rarely see them as code. You see them as a favorite color, a childhood toy, a meaningful place. Yet each of these carries a broadcast. They don't speak in language. They speak in resonance. For example, a dark green sweater might remind you of a winter you felt safe. A red room might hold intensity because it matches the shade of a past argument. A silver ring could carry grief from a person who once wore it. None of these are random. They are symbol fields. And when activated, they open stored emotional loops, some healing, some traumatic. Your subconscious links symbols with memory clusters. And over time, these links create identity anchors. You start to orient yourself around these objects, even unknowingly. You revisit places, keep mementos, wear certain styles, avoid certain songs, not for preference but for field regulation. This is why your environment matters more than you think. Because it's not neutral, it's coded. Look around your room. Every item in it holds a frequency. Every image on your wall. Every sound you let loop. These symbols either stabilize your current identity or agitate it. And here's the key. The subconscious keeps old symbols alive, even when the emotion is outdated. Which means, without realizing it, you could be anchoring to an obsolete version of yourself. That poster from 10 years ago, that hoodie, that playlist. They're not just nostalgia. They're frequency loops. And they may be keeping you tied to a signal field you've already outgrown. To shift identity, you must clean your symbol field. Start by scanning your space. Don't ask, do I like this? Ask, what version of me is this symbol connected to? What frequency does it awaken? Is that the version I want to reinforce? If the answer is no, remove it. You're not throwing it away. You're releasing its signal. Then introduce new codes. Not randomly, but intentionally. Choose color by resonance, not trend. Choose objects by emotional response, not utility. Choose music not to fill silence, but to create signal clarity. This isn't curation. It's symbolic engineering. Next, go internal. Track the symbols your mind loops around. What images dominate your inner world? What recurring objects appear in dreams? What do you visualize when you feel powerless? These are not passive. They are navigation beacons. Now rewrite. Create personal glyphs. Symbols that hold your new frequency. This could be a circle inside a square, a flame nested in a triangle, a color sequence pulsing in rhythm. You don't need artistic skill. You need symbolic intent. Draw them, wear them, place them where you see them often. Let your subconscious begin associating these glyphs with a new signal. This is frequency entrainment through symbol repetition. And over time, as the symbol field shifts, your narrative shifts. Because the subconscious is visual, and vision is direction. Your current identity is a gallery. Most of the artwork you didn't choose. Now it's time to curate consciously. Paint new anchors. Burn the old ones. not out of rejection but to clear signal distortion. When you control the symbols, you begin to control the frequency you walk in. Next we explore how dreams deliver encrypted identity updates, and how the night world isn't fantasy, but a dimensional broadcast channel feeding you version data from the edge of awareness. When your eyes close and language dissolves, a different kind of intelligence awakens. Not logical, not linear, not bound to time or place. This is the night world, the symbolic broadcast system of the subconscious. It's not where you escape the self. It's where your deepest signal updates are delivered. Dreams aren't meaningless replays of memory. They're encrypted communications sent from the signal architecture that governs your identity. But they aren't direct. They're encoded because the subconscious doesn't speak in literal form. It speaks in pattern language, in geometry, in motion, in archetype, and the dreams you remember, especially the ones that haunt or repeat, aren't random. They're version updates your conscious mind hasn't integrated yet. Let's break this open. Every night, your identity field loosens, the ego shell softens, your timeline fractures, the narrative pauses, and in that pause, the deeper layers of self attempt to recalibrate. The dream delivers a message, but not as instruction, as symbolic syntax. You're running but not moving. A stranger has your face. A room keeps changing size. A childhood object returns. You lose your voice when trying to speak. A door is always just out of reach. These aren't errors. They're signal fragments sent in compressed code, because the subconscious can't send you essays. It sends you felt metaphors. Each dream contains a frequency envelope, the emotional climate that frames the dream, a symbol field, the visual architecture, rooms, objects, beings, a narrative distortion, the conflict or loop, a signal leak, the breakthrough moment, however subtle. If you treat dreams like puzzles, you miss the point. They aren't problems to solve. They're broadcasts to absorb. Now here's the critical shift. You're not the character in the dream. You're the field, the atmosphere, the director, the interpreter, and the encoded. That's why dream logic feels alien, because it's not your conscious logic. It's your dimensional self testing new versions of reality on the symbolic level. Think of it like this. You are given version simulations. Each dream tests what it feels like to be powerless, inverted, dissolved, immense, forgotten, untethered, unformed. Why? Because the ego needs to learn how to release without threat. The dream gives you the blueprint in surreal language. It allows your identity scaffolding to be softened without your resistance. Now go deeper. Recurring dreams are stalled updates. Your conscious field rejected the message, so the system replays the sequence. But not as punishment, as persistence. To interpret encrypted dream data, track emotional tone before plot. Was it urgency, dread, euphoria, numbness? This tells you the frequency the message arrived in. Identify the anomaly, the moment the dream glitched, shifted perspective, repeated, froze, looped. That's where the identity resistance is stored. Ask, what version of me does this dream want to destabilize? What belief does this narrative contradict? What symbol kept repeating, and what does it feel like not mean? You're not decoding for answers. You're feeling for resonance breaches. And sometimes dreams aren't from your subconscious at all. They're incoming signals. From the collective field. From the archetypal grid. From versions of you haven't lived yet. This is not mysticism. It's cross-dimensional bandwidth. Because in sleep, you're untethered from personal narrative. And the field sends what you're ready to receive. To work with this consciously, create a night world anchor. An object, tone, or gesture done before sleep that signals open for signal. Record dreams not as story, but as symbol stacks. Right? Dominant color. Most active object. Emotional residue. Any sound or repeated word. Name the identity distortion you suspect the dream was targeting. Example. This dream challenged my need to be in control. Now speak it aloud. Not as confession, but as integration. The version of me who surrenders with no fear has now entered. Say it before sleep. Let the next dream respond. Because dream encryption isn't just feedback. It's an invitation to become signal literate, to navigate the story beneath waking consciousness, to receive updates not from will, but from alignment. Next, we'll explore how your mental field isn't static, but constantly shifting like weather. How what you call personality may just be your current cognitive atmosphere, and how to read and regulate it. You've thought of your mind as a container, a space that holds thoughts, beliefs, memories, ideas. But that model is outdated. Your mind isn't a container. It's a climate. Thoughts don't just appear. They arrive like clouds, like wind, like temperature. They belong to the current atmosphere your nervous system is tuned into. And this changes everything. Because if the mind is weather, then identity is not who you are. It's the field you're standing in. Let's define this clearly. A cognitive atmosphere is a temporary field state. It's composed of dominant emotional pigment, active thought forms, recent energetic inputs, sound, light, movement, language, physical posture, unresolved microtraumas, environmental frequency. All these converge to form a mental climate. And just like the sky, that climate can shift rapidly or settle for long periods. But here's what matters. Most people mistake their current climate for core identity. You say, I'm overwhelmed. But what's actually true is, I'm standing in an overloaded mental weather system. You say, I'm unmotivated. But the deeper reality is, my field is cold, low motion, starved of signal input. This shift in framing is massive, because you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And you start asking, what climate am I in, and what changes it? Let's explore the common atmospheres. Static fog, low visibility, heavy self-narration, difficulty accessing clarity. Echo chamber wind, circular thoughts, past regrets swirling, memory overload. Voltage spike, overstimulation, sharp thought bursts, identity panic. Collapse field, flattening of curiosity, fatigue, numbness. Clarity light, open signal, insight arrives easily, emotional breathability. Each of these can last minutes or days. They're not symptoms, they're system states. And just like physical weather, they don't define the landscape. They move through it, but only if you let them. Most people resist the atmosphere. They judge it. I shouldn't feel this way. I need to snap out of it. I was doing better yesterday. But resistance cements the pattern. The atmosphere tightens. You mistake the clouds for the sky. So here's the first move. Stop identifying with the weather. Say aloud, I am experiencing a pressure field. I am not the pressure. I am within thought turbulence. I am not the turbulence. I am under low visibility. I do not disappear with it. This disidentifies the self from the field. Next, begin climate regulation. You don't need to fix the atmosphere. You need to introduce contrast. Play tones that don't match the current emotion. Move in a way that contradicts the posture of the mood. Speak in rhythm when thoughts are jagged. Step outside into new spatial frequency. Change temperature. Hot shower, cold air, bare feet. You're not cheering up. You're tuning the weather system. Then track atmosphere patterns. Which cognitive climates repeat? What inputs consistently trigger them? What narratives dominate each climate? You'll find certain selves only emerge in certain atmospheres. You may feel confident in light airfields, timid in collapse, overly driven in voltage, overwhelmed in fog. These aren't different versions of you. They're weather-based configurations. And the most powerful realization? You can choose where you stand. Not always instantly, but consistently. With awareness, you become a cognitive meteorologist. Not reacting to storms, but reading them. Not panicking in fog, but navigating it. Not fearing heat, but channeling it. The mind is not a solid. It's vapor, light, density, rhythm. You don't fix your identity by freezing it. You liberate it by learning to walk in any atmosphere without forgetting the sky is still there. Next, we'll decode how cultural myths hijack your story, how archetypes colonize your narrative field, and how to reclaim symbolic sovereignty over the scripts you're unconsciously performing. You are not just shaped by personal memory. You are scripted by mythic architecture. Your behavior, your desires, your conflicts, many of these don't arise from your personal experience. They're coded by something older, something collective, something archetypal. An archetype is not a character. It's not a personality type. It's a symbolic blueprint, a story structure that holds emotional, behavioral, and energetic patterns. The orphan, the savior, the trickster, the martyr, the seducer, the wounded healer, the tyrant, the queen, the shadow child, the sacred fool. These aren't psychological labels. They're frequency clusters, energetic constellations that pattern perception and behavior when activated. You are not always aware when an archetype is active, because archetypes speak in symbols, not sentences. They enter through resonance, not choice. And once inside, they begin directing your identity field. You think you're choosing your actions, but often you're just performing a role you absorbed without question. This is archetypal hijacking. Let's break this down. You grow up watching stories in culture, in media, in religion, in family dynamics. Each one subtly tells you, this is who gets love. This is who is safe. This is who wins, who suffers, who transforms. You don't memorize those stories. You internalize their emotional logic. That logic becomes structure. And then, without realizing it, you begin acting out those storylines, using your own life as the stage. You become the underdog, the invisible one, the good girl, the lone wolf, the caretaker, the failure, the genius who no one understands, the broken romantic. You don't choose these identities. They are assigned by resonance. The more frequently an archetype is portrayed in stories you consumed, especially during childhood, the stronger its imprint. You become fluent in its emotional grammar. Feels familiar. It feels like you, but it's not you. It's a mask designed to make you readable within the cultural signal field. You were trained to behave symbolically, not authentically. And here's where it gets deeper. Archetypes are not evil. They are not lies. They are templates. But when they operate unconsciously, they become cages. Because each archetype comes with rules. The martyr must not ask for anything. The rebel must never belong. The genius must suffer. The healer must stay wounded. The nice one must suppress rage. These aren't flaws. They're conditions of the role. Break them and the subconscious panics. You risk leaving the script. And leaving the script feels like death because it means becoming unreadable. That fear is a lie. Your signal was never meant to be interpreted. It was meant to be broadcasted. You weren't meant to be a character. You were meant to be uncontained pattern expression. To reclaim symbolic sovereignty, begin here. Identify your dominant archetype. Ask, which emotional state feels most familiar? What storyline do I always seem to be in? What role do others expect from me, even when I don't offer it? Name it, clearly, not as judgment, as architecture. List the rules of the role. What are you not allowed to do if you stay in this character? Example, if I'm the helper, I'm not allowed to ask for help. If I'm the victim, I'm not allowed to be powerful. If I'm the rebel, I'm not allowed to enjoy peace. These are identity contracts, and they are optional. Choose symbolic disruption. Every archetype has symbols, objects, clothes, language, posture, tone. To break the trance, change one symbol. If you dress in darks, wear white. If you always soften your voice, speak loud. If you play the expert, ask a beginner's question. If you carry the pain, write a ridiculous poem. You don't do this to impress. You do it to interrupt the resonance. Speak the break. Say aloud, the contract with this role has expired. Then pause. Breathe. New signal permitted. It's not about becoming a new character. It's about becoming formless again. Free from mythic gravity. Free to express signal without needing to translate it into a story the world understands. Because freedom is not changing the mask. It's knowing you no longer need one. Next, we map the emotional field through geometry, decoding how inner space has shape, and how that shape affects the resonance of identity. Emotion is not abstract. It is geometric. It has form, weight, dimension, and orientation. When you feel, you don't just sense energy, you inhabit a shape. This isn't metaphor. It's functional reality. Your nervous system interprets emotional states by spatial configuration. Your inner world, in every moment, holds volume, not just tone. Let's define this. Each emotion generates a field geometry in the body-mind system. Grief often forms a downward spiral, a sinking loop of collapse. Rage may feel like an expanding triangle, sharp at the base, flaring outward. Shame tends to compress into a shrinking sphere, dense, round, hiding inward. Joy becomes a radiating burst, outward motion, symmetry, and lift. Curiosity often feels like a spiral forward coil, rotating and leaning into space. You already know this. You felt it, but you haven't named it as geometry. Once you do, you gain leverage. Because when you feel stuck emotionally, you are not just feeling something. You are trapped inside a recurring spatial pattern. And that pattern limits movement, not just of body but of identity, because identity adapts to space. Let's go further. The shapes you occupy most often become default inner architecture. That means, if you've lived for years in a compressed emotional geometry, your posture, language, behavior, and thoughts begin to mirror that shape. You speak in collapsed syntax. You breathe shallow. You walk small. Your perception curve flattens. You become loyal to the space, and the space becomes your signal. This is the architecture of limitation, not because of who you are, but because of the geometry you keep rehearsing. So how do you break it? Begin with awareness of form. Ask during emotional intensity, where is the motion moving? What shape does this feel like? Is it sharp, soft, wide, narrow, rising, falling, spiraling? Don't describe the emotion. Describe the space it makes you inhabit. Use gesture to reflect and interrupt the pattern. If the shape is collapsing, stand and expand your limbs outward. If the shape is spiraling, pause all rotation. If the shape is rising too fast, sink your feet into the floor. This isn't performance. It's counter-geometry. You're not calming yourself. You're restructuring the emotional room. Introduce external shape anchors. Objects and symbols can help shift internal geometry. Surround yourself with forms that represent the geometry you want to embody. Circles for calm containment. Triangles for direction and clarity. Spirals for dynamic curiosity. Grids for organization. Spheres for coherence. Let these shapes begin to influence posture, tone, and narrative speed. Collapse the emotional shape with sound. Sound is geometry in motion. Use tones that contrast the emotional field. If you're in a tight loop, hum wide. If you're in a burst, sing slow. Let the voice restructure the walls of the feeling. Your emotional self is not a blob. It's an architected field, a space you move through, and a space you can remake. Once you stop defining feelings by content and begin defining them by shape, you stop being trapped inside them. You become the geometric conductor of your inner space, not just reacting to emotion but designing the field it lives in. Next, we initiate an experiential process to cleanse signal distortion, using multisensory tuning and layered tone work to clear looping forms from your mind field. Your mind isn't a storage unit. It's not a database of thoughts waiting to be sorted. It's a field, dynamic, responsive, electromagnetic. It receives, processes, and emits frequency layers. These layers are built not just from thought, but from emotional residue, symbolic activation, environmental imprinting, and repetition loops. Over time, these layers accumulate distortion, unreleased emotional pigment, fragmented thought forms, half-finished scripts, outdated belief scaffolding. This residue slows your signal. It muddies clarity. It reduces coherence. Keeps you in old loops, even after you've seen through them. No amount of self-awareness clears that distortion. Only field-level tuning can. And this chapter is exactly that, not more theory, but a direct experience. a process to clear looping forms and retune the signal architecture of your inner space. Begin seated or standing with minimal sensory input around you. No visuals, no narration, just awareness of presence. Now bring attention to your auditory field. Not your thoughts, but what you hear in the room. The smallest sounds. Air movement. Hum. Silence between sounds. This is your entrance. Not to escape, but to recalibrate. Let the sounds land in your awareness without naming. Each sound is a marker in space. Let them map the boundary of the moment. Now shift your attention to your inner auditory layer. What tones are playing inside? Not imagined music, but tonal pressure. Buzzing? Ringing? Silence that feels heavy? Don't fix it. Just listen. You're listening to the current tuning of your mind field. Now inhale. Not as breath work, but as frequency reception. And as you exhale, use sound. A soft tone. One sustained vowel. Let it vibrate. Let it touch the inner auditory layer. Repeat this 3 times, and notice where the sound resonates most. Chest? Throat? Skull? Spine? Below the ribs? This is not chakra alignment. This is field frequency mapping. Wherever the vibration feels resisted or shallow, that's where distortion is lodged. Now begin to layer the sound. A tone variation. A second frequency. Let one note rise. Let another dip. You're creating wave interference. These aren't notes. These are code disruptions. As you tone, feel for changes in thought speed, emotional flavor, spatial pressure. Let sound do the work. Now shift to gesture. Slowly raise both arms overhead and lower them to your sides in a wide arc. Do this twice, not symbolically, but to sweep the outer edges of your mind field. Your arms are tracing the signal perimeter. Repeat slower. Then move your hands close to your body and imagine them combing through residue. Thought strands, emotional particles, stuck voice fragments. Brush them downward off your body into the floor, not with aggression, with finality. Now pause. In the stillness, scan the mental field again. What's present? You may notice less chatter, not because thoughts are gone, but because their charge has reduced. You may feel blank, not numb, but neutral. This is the goal. Not to feel better, to feel clear, because clarity is the condition for new signal to form. Now anchor. Place one hand on your sternum, one on your lower belly. Say aloud, slowly, I now broadcast clean signal. Pause. I no longer carry looping residue. Pause. My field is tuned. I do not return to distortion. Feel that. Don't try to believe it. Just let the vibration land in the system. This process is not a ritual. It's a neurological signal break paired with emotional discharge. Done consistently, it rewrites the dominant field state. And with the distortion cleared, a new question can finally be asked. If the old code is no longer running, what will you choose to identify with now? Next, we begin reconstruction and uncover the formula behind all identity. How attention and emotional charge fuse to build who you believe you are. You've believed identity is something found, discovered, revealed, but it isn't. It's assembled. Every version of you has been a construction, created by 2 ingredients: sustained attention, emotional charge. That's it. Where your attention rests and what feeling binds to that focus, that's what you become. Let's break this formula down. When you were young, your attention was guided toward approval, toward fear, toward family dynamics. You were trained to focus on what others felt, what might go wrong, how to be good, when to stay quiet. Each of those focal points carried emotion, and that emotion coded meaning. Attention plus shame equals, I'm bad. Attention plus anxiety equals, I'm unsafe. Attention plus praise equals, I'm valuable when I perform. You didn't choose these combinations. They were installed, and they calcified into identity. You began to unconsciously place attention on situations that recreated the emotional charge you were used to, even if they felt bad. Because the mind doesn't seek pleasure. It seeks familiar structure. So identity becomes a feedback loop. You see the same themes. You respond with the same feelings. You then interpret that response as who you are. But it's not you. It's a repetition formula, sustained attention, emotional reinforcement, identity output. Here's the glitch. Most people try to change their identity by changing behavior. But behavior is the last domino. The first is attention. So the shift must begin with reclaiming control of focus. Not just where your eyes land, but where your awareness lives. Ask, what themes does my attention feed daily? Are they congruent with who I claim to be? What emotional pigment coats those thoughts? You may find your attention lives in memory, or in imaginary failure scenarios, or in other people's reactions, or in trying to prove worth. None of these are identity. They are attention traps. And wherever attention goes, emotion follows. And when emotion attaches, identity forms. To reverse this, start with micro-redirection. Not positivity, not affirmation, just choice of focus. Example, you feel a familiar loop arise. They probably think I'm annoying. Don't argue with it. Don't affirm. Just move attention to a neutral anchor. Your breath, the light in the room, the texture of your clothing. Break the link. Remove charge. Redirect. Then, add your own charge. Find a focus point that reflects the signal you want to live in. Not future goals. Present resonance. A phrase. A shape. A rhythm. A tone. And hold it. Then pair it with emotion, gratitude, joy, boldness, stillness. You've now begun creating a new identity equation. Repeat this intentionally, not to trick the mind, but to train the signal. Because here's the final truth. You do not become by working harder. You become by focusing longer and feeling deeper into a frequency that matches your true alignment. Attention plus emotion equals identity. This is the axis. You don't need to find yourself. You need to stop fueling the self you didn't choose. Next, we begin conscious construction. You will learn how to blueprint your own identity structure, not as fantasy, but as a stable architectural form built from signal logic. You've seen the echo loops. You've cleared the static. You've witnessed the old identity crumble without a fight, only habit. So now we ask, who's building what comes next? Not the ego, not the wounded child, not the inner critic or the social self. The builder must be the architect, and the architect must be new, not new in name, new in design logic. To construct a new identity, you don't start with traits. You start with signal scaffolding. Let's be precise. An identity is not a list of qualities. It's a coherent broadcast pattern made up of core signal, the emotional tone you want to carry, structural rhythm, your pattern of thought and behavior, environmental coherence, what your surroundings echo back, symbolic integrity, the language, color, posture, and gesture you use to express the new frequency. None of this is accidental. If you don't build it intentionally, it builds itself around the loudest story still left alive. This is why reinvention rarely lasts. People try to change action, but action without internal architecture crumbles. Here's how to begin real construction. Step 1. Identify the signature. This is not a goal. This is a felt state. Ask, what tone do I want my field to broadcast? Not what do I want to do? What do I want to feel like as a field? Examples: still, exact, resonant, magnetic, expansive, inevitable. Pick one word, only one. This becomes your core frequency anchor, the center of the build. You are not designing a life. You are designing a signal signature. Step 2. Design the support structures. Every frequency requires a stable scaffold. Scaffolds are not thoughts. They are daily rhythms, physical actions, emotional primers, boundaries of energy leakage, language loops that reinforce coherence. For example, if your identity signal is resonant, your scaffold might include silence before speaking, walking with rhythm instead of rush, wearing tones that mirror internal pacing, repeating a phrase like, no need to echo noise. This isn't performance. This is infrastructure alignment. Without scaffolds, signal collapses under stress. Step 3. Introduce symbolic encoding. Every real identity build requires symbolic anchors. These aren't decorations. They are field memory markers. Choose a color, a sound, a shape, a gesture, an object. These are embedded into your daily environment, your clothing, your rituals. Example: if your new identity is precise, your symbol field might include a small silver cube on your desk, crisp monochrome clothing, exact breathing before answering a question, the tone of a single bell each morning. The subconscious learns through repetition of symbol, not through affirmations. This is frequency training, not self-help. Step 4. Deactivate the saboteur layer. Every field contains residual architecture from past blueprints. Some of it will activate in response to your construction. You may feel sudden apathy, perfectionism, old shame thoughts, identity fatigue. These aren't signs of failure. They're reclamation attempts from the obsolete self. Don't fight them. Label them. Say, "This is a signal ghost. It belongs to a former scaffold. It no longer governs this field." And move forward, not with force but with structure. The more signal you feed the new design, the more the old collapses from lack of resonance. Step 5. Anchor with patterned action. Identity becomes real when it is acted into structure. Don't wait for full belief. Don't seek confirmation. Move as if the frequency is already dominant. Not in fantasy, in rhythm. Act like this. Speak only when the field is clear. Walk the room as the architect, not the actor. Filter input to match the tone. Rest inside the signal even if it feels unfamiliar. You are not pretending. You are training gravity. Because eventually the field stabilizes. You don't have to maintain it. It starts maintaining you. That's the real shift. When the identity becomes architecture, and the architecture becomes environment, and the environment begins rainforming you. This is not a new you. This is you 2.0, the version not built from trauma or trend or history, but from signal, from coherence, from design. Next, we'll step into the theater of the mind and discover how the unseen stage of your inner world has been directing your storylines without permission. Your inner world is not a blank canvas. It's a theater. It has a stage, a script, a lighting rig, a soundtrack, a cast, a director. Most of these elements are invisible until you realize they've been staging your entire identity performance without conscious direction. The subconscious doesn't think in logic. It directs your behavior through scene design. Let's be exact. When you picture your future, is it bright or dim? When you replay a conflict, does the lighting feel harsh or distant? When you speak to yourself, is there background noise, laughter, judging silence? These aren't imagined aesthetics. They're internal set design, and they influence what memories feel true, what ideas feel safe, what emotions get spotlighted, what characters you assign to others. Your mental theater becomes your emotional reality. Let's look at its parts. 1. The stage. This is where most of your mental action takes place. Ask, is your inner stage cramped or spacious? Does it look like a room, a battlefield, a spotlight, a cave? This matters, because the subconscious creates mood fields based on environment. A small stage equals limited possibility. A spotlight equals constant judgment. A battlefield equals readiness for conflict. You didn't choose this stage. It formed based on early emotional experiences. Now you get to rebuild it. 2. The lighting. Lighting determines what gets seen. Most people's inner lighting is harsh, flickering, dim, or too bright. Examples. Inner criticism often uses a bright white spotlight. Shame uses dim, narrow pools of light. Fantasy escapes flood the stage in golden wash. Ask, what kind of light surrounds my thoughts? What emotions dominate under that lighting? Then shift it. Introduce neutral, full-spectrum light. Visualize it. Feel it. Let it bathe your stage without distortion. This is not imagination for escape. It's environment recalibration. 3. The sound. What's the background sound in your mind? Constant hum? Static noise? Repeating lyrics? An imagined audience? This sound sets the emotional atmosphere. Silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's tension. Sometimes it's absence. Choose a new soundscape, not a playlist. Tone. Low drones for grounding. Open chords for clarity. Reverb for spaciousness. Design the acoustic architecture of your inner world. 4. The cast. Who keeps showing up? Parents, exes, authority figures, social avatars, imagined critics. These cast members often appear automatically, not because they belong, but because the old director never fired them. It's time. Mentally clear the stage. Say, I now release all cast members who no longer serve this signal. Watch them leave. Now invite new ones. Not people. Aspects of self. The watcher. The architect. The child. The builder. The silent one. The signal. Each of these aspects offers perspective, not performance. Let them speak. Let them watch. Let them hold space. 5. The director. Here's the real question. Who's been calling the shots? Usually, fear, history, shame, adaptation, defense. But none of these are qualified. You are now appointing a new director. Clarity. Clarity does not yell. Clarity does not rush. Clarity does not dramatize. Clarity simply points and aligns. Let the new director remove old scripts. Let the scenes play out differently. The argument doesn't end with collapse. The vision doesn't blur at the climax. The audience doesn't boo. There is no audience. Only you, watching the watching. When the director shifts, the whole theater responds. Because the mind isn't static. It's programmable stage design. And once you realize this, you no longer need to act out old roles. You become the writer, the director, and sometimes, when clarity allows, you walk off the stage entirely. Next, we'll go beyond structure and meet the frequencies with faces that live in your signal field and learn how to interact with them like sentient co-creators, not moods. You think of emotions as states, passing waves, reactions, inner weather. But what if they're more than that? What if they're beings with form, pattern, and voice? Each frequency you feel isn't just a vibration, it's a presence. And each presence has a face. Not a literal one, but a symbolic architecture. A shape, a posture, a way of entering the field. Joy isn't just warmth. It's a golden being that expands your inner walls and stretches the roof of your awareness. Shame isn't just collapse. It's a bent figure that drips black liquid onto your spine and hides behind your eyes. You've been visited by these beings your whole life, but you've never spoken to them. You've let them speak through you. This chapter changes that. It's time to shift from being the host to becoming the communicator. Frequencies, when personified, become conversational. They reveal their rules. They disclose their triggers. They explain their logic. And most importantly, they let you negotiate. Let's begin. Sit still. Name the strongest emotion you've felt today. Not the surface feeling, the dominant frequency. Maybe it's tension, or anticipation, or frustration, or nostalgia. Choose one. Now close your eyes and say aloud, show me your face. Not literal, not imagination. Let a shape, color, or posture arrive. It might be a hunched figure, a flame, a red blur, a geometrical shadow, a faceless mirror. Whatever it is, that's the frequency avatar. Now ask, what do you want from me? And listen. The answer may not be in words. It may arrive as a sensation, a gesture, a phrase, a pressure. You are now in dialogue. Next, ask, what do you need in order to soften? Or, what do you need in order to guide me cleanly? Because every frequency either distorts you or directs you, depending on whether it's unacknowledged or met consciously. Let's take a few examples. Anxiety, face, jittery silver spider pacing. Tone, high-pitched, staccato. Message, I'm scanning for disruption. I think you forgot something. Need, give me a job. I panic when idle. Clean directive, help me sequence priorities, one at a time. Grief, face, hunched gray silhouette holding a flickering orb. Tone, low hum, slow breathing. Message, I hold the value of what is gone. Need. Let me be seen without rushing me. Clean directive. Let me color the moment without defining the self. Confidence. Face. Upright figure with wide arms and a calm gaze. Tone. Steady, deep, resonant. Message. I emerge when structure and presence align. Need. Consistency, not adrenaline. Clean directive. Walk in rhythm and I will remain. Every time you speak to a frequency avatar, you weaken the trance of identity. Why? Because identity collapse happens when you mistake the frequency for the self. But when you see it as a visitor, you become the host with agency. Now go deeper. Map your internal cast. Build your frequency council. Draw them. Name them. Describe their tones. This isn't for play. This is your emotional interface system. Because when the subconscious sees emotion as form, not overwhelm, it begins to organize, not resist. From here, begin directing. When the frequency enters, greet it. Ask what it's broadcasting. Ask what it needs. Channel it with structure, or invite it to leave cleanly. You are no longer just experiencing emotions. You're hosting energetic intelligences with distinct needs. You are no longer reacting. You're commanding the signal interface. And when frequencies are seen, not suppressed, not over-identified with, they cooperate, they align, they evolve. Next, you'll learn how to override subconscious rules using metaphor as active code. Not as poetry, but as dimensional directive. Words aren't just tools. They're containers of logic. They don't just describe reality, they bind your field to it. Especially metaphor, because metaphor doesn't speak to the conscious mind. It speaks directly to the subconscious operating system. The subconscious doesn't understand affirmations. It understands images wrapped in emotional logic, metaphors with direction. This is what we call dimensional directives. Commands disguised as stories, patterns encoded in narrative. And when used properly, they reprogram your inner rulebook. Here's why it works. Your identity isn't controlled by what you believe. It's controlled by what your subconscious thinks the story means. If you say, I'm worthy, but your metaphor of self is, I'm a glass waiting to be filled, then you will constantly feel dependent on external validation. Why? Because the metaphor is the code. The words are just noise. So the shift begins here. You don't change beliefs. You install new metaphors, then speak them as directive syntax. Let's begin the process. Step 1. Identify the dominant metaphor. Ask yourself, when I think about my place in the world, what image comes up? Don't edit. Don't interpret. Just witness. Examples. I'm a thread in someone else's fabric. I'm a leaf floating downstream. I'm a light bulb trying to stay on. I'm a locked box. Now ask, does this image feel empowering or restrictive? What assumptions are hidden inside it? What story does this metaphor require me to live? This is your current dimensional script. Step 2. Design a new directive. Choose a metaphor that fits your intended signal. Examples. Old. I'm a cracked mirror. New. I'm a prism. I don't reflect. I refract. Old. I'm a lost page. New. I'm the pen that writes new language. Old. I'm stuck in a maze. New. I'm the terrain reconfiguring itself under my step. The metaphor must feel visceral. You must feel it in your body, not just admire it in your mind. Step 3. Convert it into directive syntax. This is not just poetic phrasing. This is command layer speech for the subconscious field. Take the new metaphor and format it like this. I now operate as metaphor. Therefore, directive logic. Examples. I now operate as a prism. Therefore, I do not seek reflection. I bend and color light. I now operate as terrain. Therefore, I don't follow paths. I make them. Speak this out loud. Slowly. Let your nervous system absorb the syntax shift. Step 4. Pair with behavior anchor. Choose one gesture, motion, or action that will now trigger the directive metaphor. Touch your chest. Step with deliberate weight. Snap fingers. Close your eyes for one breath. This becomes your metaphoric key. Each time you do it, you're activating the metaphor, and the subconscious begins to replace the old pattern with this new logic. Step 5. Layer it into environment. Place objects, shapes, or visuals that match the metaphor in your daily space. If you are a prism, place light-reflecting items around you. If you are terrain, place maps or earth symbols near your workspace. If you are the pen, leave blank paper where you usually distract yourself. This is environmental reinforcement. The subconscious sees these and replays the metaphor in the background field. You are not just building identity. You're writing the language your subconscious now obeys. The key is repetition, not belief. Say it again. I don't need to believe the metaphor. I just need to speak it as code. Because over time, belief becomes irrelevant. The pattern becomes structure. The structure becomes function. And the function becomes self. Next, we go chromatic, into an immersive experience where color frequency is used to imprint the new signal and create emotional anchors in your visual system. Color is not just visual. It's frequency language encoded into form. Each color carries an energetic logic. Not symbolic as in culture, symbolic as in signal pattern. When you see red, your nervous system shifts. Not because you like red, but because red stimulates alertness circuits tied to physical readiness. When you see deep blue, it slows the breath, not metaphorically, but neurologically. When you sit in green, your heart rate adjusts toward balance. This chapter is not about color theory. It's about using color frequency as an identity scaffold. Your current identity signature is tethered to a default color code, often unconscious. You wear certain hues. Your space contains dominant tones. Your visualization field repeats the same shades. That palette becomes a reinforcer of self-state. Today, we break that. This is not style. This is signal intervention. Let's begin. Step 1. Scan your internal palette. Close your eyes. Bring up an image of yourself in your most typical self-state. Not your appearance, your emotional shape. Now ask, what color surrounds this version of me? What hue dominates the space? What texture does that color carry? Matte? Glowing? Dripping dry? Don't edit. Just witness. Now ask, does this color support the version I'm becoming? Or trap me in the one I've been rehearsing? Example, dull gray may represent collapse, invisibility, protection. Murky yellow, nervous energy, needing approval. Overexposed white, dissociation, false purity. Saturated red, emotional urgency, overstimulation. This is your current signal coding. Step 2. Choose the new frequency color. Now, define the feeling signature of the identity you are stabilizing. Clarity, confidence, magnetic presence, still power, subtle genius, emotional sovereignty. Now ask, what color amplifies this signal? Don't think. Feel the answer. Let's decode a few common signal colors by their frequency function. Deep indigo, dimensional thinking, mental silence, pattern perception. Emerald green, energetic equilibrium, natural confidence, alignment. Saffron gold, creative authority, embodied courage, spiritual heat. Charcoal black, protection, void presence, narrative reset. Electric cyan, curiosity, clean logic, detachment from distortion. Silver gray, transmission neutrality, observer consciousness. Soft violet, transitional identity, emotional repair, dream interface. Now choose one. Let this be your identity shift tone. Step 3. Visual encoding. With eyes closed, breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth in a slow rhythm. Now visualize the selected color as mist entering your field. Let it coat the inside of the body, fill the chest cavity, saturate the limbs, collect behind the eyes. Now shift it from mist to light, more focused, directed. Let it scan every area that feels emotionally heavy or mentally looped. Let the light clean the residue. Then visualize this color wrapping your body like a membrane. You are not coloring your skin. You are sealing your field. Say aloud, I now wear this frequency as my coat. This color remembers who I am when I forget. This tone holds my signal steady. Step 4. Anchor in the physical. Pick one or more physical anchors for this tone. Clothing, a pen, phone background, small object in pocket, wall accent, water bottle, candle, bracelet or ring. The goal is not aesthetics. The goal is continuity of signal. Each time you see the color, it speaks back to your subconscious. This is the version we are reinforcing. Your mind becomes chromatically loyal over time. Give it consistency. Step 5. Visual integration rehearsal. Each day for 3 minutes. Stand still. Breathe into the chest. Call forward the frequency color. See it as light rising from the ground and surrounding you. Let the light solidify into a shell. Speak the identity word into the field. E.g., clarity, sovereign, true, intact. Repeat for 7 days. Don't force belief. Let the association matrix build. Eventually, the moment you think of that color, the identity state will lock in. This is signal embodiment, not visualization as fantasy, but as neurological identity cue. Color becomes code. Code becomes pattern. Pattern becomes behavior. Behavior becomes you. Next, we step into narrative remastery and reshape the archetypal scripts you've been unconsciously performing. Not to reject them, but to alchemy them into upgraded personal myth. Your life has not been just random events. It's been a storyline, unfolding according to archetypal design patterns. Not because you chose them, because they were installed. You've been cast as the hero, the outsider, the misunderstood genius, the loyal one, the fixer, the silent sufferer. These are not lies. They're incomplete scripts, missing edits, missing endings, stuck in loops. You've been performing a myth that was handed to you by family, culture, unresolved memory, and broadcast emotion. But now you've cleared the fog. You've met the frequencies. You've tuned your color field. Now it's time to remix your myth. This isn't about telling a new story. It's about rewriting the underlying narrative code that determines what roles you think you must play, what lessons you assume life will teach you, what kind of endings you expect, what archetypes have power over your decisions. Let's begin. Step 1. Identify your dominant life myth. Ask, what storyline do I keep repeating no matter the context? What identity role do I default to under stress or attention? If my life were a film, what genre has it been? Examples. The overcomer. Life is a test. I rise through pain. I earn rest. The ghost. I go unseen, unheard, and misunderstood. The guardian. I protect others, sacrifice myself. The prophet in exile. I see clearly, but no one listens. The performer. I earn love through excellence, perfection, or charm. Now write this myth as a single symbolic sentence. I am the one who repairs what others break because I believe that makes me safe, but no one sees the cost. This sentence is your narrative encryption. Now it's time to distill, then distort. Step 2. Break the mythic logic. Look at your sentence. Ask, what is the hidden contract here? What belief system does this enforce? What version of the world does it require? Now write the break statement. That version of reality is not architecture. It is residue. Say it again. Because when you believe the myth is truth, you become its instrument. When you see it as draft, you regain authorship. Step 3. Choose a new archetypal remix. This isn't fantasy roleplay. This is symbolic repatterning. Choose an upgraded script. Not opposite, evolved. If your old role was the overcomer, your remix might be the frequency holder. I don't overcome. I align. I don't fight gravity. I recalibrate it. If your old role was the performer, your remix might be the signal. I don't perform for approval. I broadcast coherence and the right ones tune in. Now write your new sentence. I am the one who because I carry a and I no longer require a Example. I am the one who holds rhythm because I carry transmission clarity. and I no longer require applause to be real. This is your story code override. Step 4. Anchor with story mirror ritual. Each morning for 7 days, look into your reflection. Speak the old myth sentence once. Say, "Story complete." Then speak the new sentence with presence. Pause. Walk away without breaking eye contact. This mirrors your archetypal upgrade into the nervous system through direct facial recognition. Over time, your identity will stop reacting as the old character. The internal stage will quiet. The drama will soften. Not because you denied the story, but because you rewrote its spine. You are not the myth. You are the one who edits it. You are not the archetype. You are the field it once borrowed. Next, we'll step into vocal unbinding and use audio reversal and vocal loop hacking to disidentify from internalized voices you didn't choose. You've heard it before. That voice. The one that says, "You're too much. You'll mess it up. You should be better by now." Sounds like you, but it's not. It's an echo. A sound print left behind by someone else's fear, judgment, or projection. You internalized it. You looped it. And over time, it felt like identity. But that voice was not yours. It was recorded into you. You've been mimicking it without question. This chapter is your exit from vocal captivity. You'll learn how to reverse these internal echoes, rewire your sound loop, and extract your authentic tone from the layers of borrowed noise. This is not mindset work. It's vocal engineering. Let's begin. Step 1. Identify your primary internalized voice. Close your eyes. Ask, what voice tone dominates when I'm under pressure? Is it harsh, dismissive, cold, sarcastic, panicked? Now ask, who does it sound like? Where did I first hear this pattern? Don't psychoanalyze. Just locate the origin. Now imagine that voice in your mind's ear. Listen to the texture. Is it fast, flat, high-pitched, weighted, choppy? That's your echo imprint. Label it. This is a distorted vocal residue. It is not me. Step 2. Record the echo. Speak the phrase aloud. Exactly how it normally plays in your mind. Use the same tone, same rhythm, same volume. Example, "You're not ready. This is going to fall apart. Don't even try." Now record yourself saying it. Listen to the playback once. This is not for guilt. It's for extraction. You are pulling the ghost into the light. Now delete the recording. Say aloud, "That echo is no longer stored in my system." Step 3. Invert the vocal pattern. Now take that same phrase and say it again, but this time invert everything. Speak it backwards. Word order reversed. Use an unexpected vocal tone, e.g., sing it, whisper it, robotic voice. Change the rhythm, elongate what was sharp, shorten what was long. Add breath between each word. This scramble breaks the loop in your auditory cortex. It tells your nervous system, this phrase no longer holds authority. You are now deprogramming not just the content but the sound code. Step 4. Install your true tone. Now speak a replacement phrase not as correction, but as a fresh broadcast. Don't choose a generic affirmation. Choose a phrase that holds neutral power. Examples, "I build in silence. This rhythm is mine. I am the clear signal. No approval required." Speak it 3 times. Once slowly, once loudly, once with closed eyes and whisper. Let your voice find its original pace. That's your true tone. Not the words, the vocal rhythm. Now sit for 30 seconds in silence. Notice how the inner voice has changed. Not in message, in feel. You've just rewritten part of your signal field. Step 5. Daily echo reversal loop. Once per day, identify any intrusive voice line. Repeat the reversal sequence. Say it aloud as you usually hear it. Record it, listen once, then delete. Invert tone, order, and pacing. Replace with neutral power phrase. Sit in silence and observe the tone shift. This process slowly starves the echo, because it cannot survive in an environment that no longer mimics its pattern. Your voice isn't just a sound, it's a field command. When distorted, it loops old stories. When reclaimed, it becomes your architectural tone. Next, you will construct a sound environment, not internal but external, designed to mirror and reinforce your recoded identity. You live inside a sound field. Whether you notice it or not, you are constantly being shaped by ambient frequency. Footsteps, HVAC hum, background music, keyboard taps. All of it becomes part of your sensory scaffold. And over time, it influences your pace of thought, your emotional readiness, your narrative rhythm, your mental tension or calm. This chapter is about transforming sound from passive background into deliberate identity architecture. You will learn to design a customized audio environment that reinforces your chosen frequency and dissolves noise that destabilizes your inner scaffolding. This is not about taste. It's not about comfort. It's about functional sound alignment. Let's begin. Step 1. Map your current sound field. Sit in silence. Scan your surroundings. What sounds are present? List them. Buzzing from electronics. Traffic outside. Fluorescent lights. Human chatter. Notification dings. Household appliances. Now ask, which of these sounds are shaping my nervous system without consent? Which ones amplify tension or mimic internal static? Each one is a resonance hook. Mark which sounds need to be masked, removed, or redirected. Step 2. Define your identity tone. Recall your current identity signal from earlier chapters. What does it feel like as a tone? Is it low and grounding? High and spacious? Warm and enveloping? Cold and exact? This becomes your auditory baseline. Now define your tone purpose. Focus, calm, authority, mystery, expansion, silence within noise. Choose one. Let it guide your next steps. Step 3. Select your sound elements. You will now curate intentional audio elements to match the field. Pick from the following categories: foundational tones, continuous underscore, binaural pulses, alpha for flow, theta for access, delta for rest, isochronic tones, nature drones, wind, deep forest hum, distant thunder, emotional overlays, symbolic texture, Tibetan bowls, deep cello, rain on roof, ocean ebb, wind chimes, ethereal synth pads, narrative anchors, field commands, spoken mantra loops, single word intervals, e.g., steady, build, clear, reversed audio phrases, to dissolve meaning and reset mental loops. Curate no more than 3 elements per environment. Each space you spend time in should have a matching soundscape. For example, workspace soundscape, alpha binaural pulse, soft analog synth pad, spoken phrase loop every 20 minutes. You are the rhythm. Evening soundscape, deep cello drone, thunderstorm low rumble. No voice. Soundscaping is not a luxury. It is structural memory work. Your brain begins to associate certain tones with identity states. With repetition, you no longer think your new identity. You enter it automatically through sound trigger. Step 4. Anchor with breath and posture. Choose a gesture or breath pattern you do each time you activate the sound environment. Examples: 3 deep exhalations, 1 slow nod, hand to chest, then to table, palms facing down on knees. This becomes a neurological link. Sound plus gesture equals state entry. Over time, this is not habit, it becomes your identity switchboard. You walk into a space. You play the sound. You take the breath. You shift. Step 5. Design your silence. Noise is not the only problem. Improper silence can create distortion too. Not all silence is clean. Ask, is this silence empty or pregnant? Does this silence amplify clarity or trigger unease? What sound is my mind substituting into this space? You can design silence. Try adding white noise, distant nature field recordings, low static from vinyl or tape, room tone from an open mic. Choose silence that cradles your signal, not one that echoes your oldest loops. Because sometimes what sounds like silence is really just space for distortion to scream. Reclaim it. You are not passive in the world of sound. You are the composer. Every frequency you allow in becomes part of your architecture. Every sound you repeat becomes a wall, a window, or a trap. So sculpt your audio world to mirror who you've become. Let every hum, every note, every ambient pulse say, "This is who I am now." Next, we build a multisensory frequency scaffold, integrating sound, motion, breath, and posture into a singular structure for anchoring identity in real time. By now, you've adjusted your voice. You've tuned your environment. You've sculpted metaphor and sound into a personalized code. But without a structure to hold that signal, it drifts. Not because it's weak, but because your body field isn't yet trained to carry it consistently. You need a scaffold, not a belief, a multisensory support system that makes your chosen identity inevitable. This isn't a ritual. This is neurofrequency architecture. And this chapter gives you the blueprint. Let's define the scaffold. It's made of 5 elements: posture, body form as signal anchor; breath, internal pacing engine; gesture, kinetic reinforcement of chosen identity; phrase, vocal command loop; tone, audio resonance alignment. When combined deliberately, they form a stabilized identity field, one you can step into at will and live from without mental strain. Let's build it. Step 1. Choose the identity frequency, not the story, not the self-description, the felt tone of the version of you that's already built beneath the noise. Examples: quiet certainty, regal stillness, electric flow, sacred boundary, expansive neutrality. Name it. One phrase only. Write it on paper. Say it aloud. This is your field frequency. Step 2. Design the posture. Stand or sit. Now ask, how would this frequency move through my spine? Would it rise like a rod or melt like a wave? Are the shoulders held or soft? Is the chest open or shielded? Don't imitate confidence. Embody coherence. Move until the form feels natural, stable, and minimally effortful. You've just found your signal posture. Hold it for 1 minute. Breathe slowly. Let the body remember. Step 3. Pair the breath. Your posture is the container. Now define the breath rhythm that feeds this frequency. Try each style. 4:6. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 6 grounding. Box. 4:4:4:4 focus. 6:6:6. Inhale, hold, exhale, presence. Natural breath with extended exhale. Neutrality. Choose one. Sync it with posture. Now you're layering signal rhythm into physiology. Step 4. Assign a gesture. What simple motion can you use to reinforce this signal? Examples: one hand over solar plexus, palms facing out then down, fingers touching then releasing, head tilt with eye softening. This gesture is your frequency lock. Each time you perform it, your nervous system links to the scaffold. Repeat 3 times with breath. Let it sink in. Step 5. Speak the phrase. Now assign a vocal command, not an affirmation, but a signal directive. Examples: all systems aligned. Nothing to prove. Hold the line. I am the field. Clear tone only. Say it aloud, in the posture with the breath, following the gesture. Repeat 5 times. This completes the scaffold. You've now created an anchor state, physical, emotional, energetic, that is not imagination but architecture. Step 6. Practice the sequence. Do this full sequence each morning. Assume the posture. Breathe in rhythm, 60 seconds. Perform gesture, 3 times. Speak the phrase, 5 times. Sit in silence for 30 seconds. Let the identity field stabilize. No resistance, no chasing belief, just consistent signal entrainment. Over time, this state becomes your default. Not because you believe it, because your system remembers it. This scaffold holds your upgraded identity not through effort but through integrated frequency command. Next, we leave construction behind and enter the emptiness beneath all identity. We begin the descent into the space between stories, the dimensionless self that existed before any role was ever played. You've built new patterns. You've shifted sound. You've rewritten form. You've replaced metaphor. But there's one thing left to remember, or rather, to unforget. You are not the new identity. You are not the architect. You are not even the signal. You are the space from which all signals arise. Not the content, not the shape, the field that holds it all. This chapter is not about adding anything. It's about resting in the non-pattern, the stillness behind the scaffolding. Because when all roles are dropped, when all codes are off, what remains is not absence. It is pure, dimensionless presence. Let's approach it with care. The silence before identity. Most people fear stillness because they confuse it with nothingness. But this is not emptiness. This is the unshaped field. Before you were named, defined, praised, rejected, analyzed. You were awareness itself. Not watching, just being. No preferences, no opinions, no labels, no edge. This space still exists. Right now. Beneath all the thinking, doing, constructing. You don't need to create it. You need to relax the grip on form long enough to fall back into it. How to access the space. There's no ritual, just subtraction. Try this. Sit still. Let all thought rise, don't follow. Ask, who is noticing this moment? What shape is awareness taking? Notice how thought slows when not narrated. Stay there. Don't wait for fireworks. Just feel the uncolored texture of existence. That's you. Not the voice in your head. Not the body tension. Not the intention. Just the field that allows all of it to appear. The lie of continuity. Your ego clings to story for safety. It wants continuity. Past. A timeline. A cause. A self-image. But presence doesn't require continuity. It requires only now frequency. Without story, you're not erased. You're liberated. Because the you've been protecting is just a compilation of past data, held together by habitual narration. Let go of the narrator, and the real self begins to surface. But it's not a person. It's presence. Why this matters now. In the age of algorithms and hyper-identity, the pressure to be someone is louder than ever. But beneath all roles is the truth. You are not someone. You are the space in which someone temporarily arises. You are not your name, not your trauma, not your progress, not your pattern, not your frequency. All of that belongs to the construct. And the construct is useful, but it is not you. You are the observer behind every lens, the screen behind every film, the stillness between every heartbeat. And the more you recognize this space, the more the constructed self begins to relax. You stop proving. You stop editing. You stop performing. You just are. Practice the storyless gaze. Sit in front of a mirror. Look into your own eyes. Now subtract. Don't think of your name. Don't recall your past. Don't project your future. Don't label the emotion. Just stare. Let all story dissolve. Eventually, something happens. You stop feeling like a person. You start feeling like presence in a body. That's the truth. That's the only identity that can't be hijacked. Integration, living as the space. This space isn't an escape. It's the foundation. From here you can still work, love, create, design, but without confusing the activity with who you are. You wear roles like clothes. You play frequencies like instruments. But you never forget the one who doesn't need a voice to exist. This is freedom, not because it's glamorous, but because it's quiet. You no longer panic when an identity collapses. You no longer chase becoming. You no longer fear contradiction, because the space behind all of it was never touched. Next, we explore the false promise of arrival and discover that identity isn't a destination, but a directional pull. You've been chasing something called yourself. You thought it was hidden. You believed it was waiting to be found, buried beneath confusion, memory, or failure. But the closer you got, the more it moved. Because identity isn't a destination. It's a directional illusion, a mirage on the horizon designed not to be reached, but to pull you forward. The self you imagine, the ideal version, the healed version, the version that finally makes sense, is not a fixed reality. It's a lure. It was never meant to be caught. And once you understand this, everything changes. You stop fixating on arrival. You stop measuring distance. You stop asking, "Am I there yet?" Because you realize there is no there. Let's dismantle this confusion with precision. The myth of arrival. You've been told, find yourself. Become your best self. Be true to yourself. But all of these instructions assume that self is a place, a stable, discoverable state. It's not. The self is a pattern in flux, an ever-adjusting arrangement of signals, choices, moods, and memories. Cannot be located, can only be traced. You don't arrive at the self. You notice its current outline and then it changes. This is not failure. This is nature. Identity as vector, not object. A vector has no fixed form. It has direction and intensity. This is what the real self is. It's a trajectory, not an endpoint. Each time you think you've become something, life shifts the terrain. Why? Because identity isn't static. It's responsive architecture. It adapts. It flexes. It moves. Your task is not to reach a final version of self. Your task is to recognize when you are being pulled by false lures. What are false lures? The self that is perfect in public. The self that always feels peace. The self that never doubts. The self that is finished evolving. These are not goals. They are distractions. They keep you running on loops instead of responding to life's real-time signal. Reframing the chase. Instead of asking, am I becoming my best self? Ask, what frequency am I walking toward? What pattern am I amplifying right now? Does this step match the direction, not the fantasy? When you reframe self as movement, not target, your relationship to change becomes lighter. You no longer panic when you shift moods. You no longer collapse when old behaviors resurface. You no longer punish yourself for inconsistency. Because you understand, inconsistency is the signature of a live signal. Only dead code repeats identically forever. The danger of fixing identity. The moment you say, this is who I am, you freeze a living process into a mental tomb. Fixed identity leads to rigidity, insecurity when challenged, defensive behavior, identity fatigue. You become the guard of your own cage. But if you treat identity as a constantly retuning broadcast, you stay agile. You adapt without losing core direction. You don't need to fix who you are. You need to remain aligned with what moves you forward. Practice, trace the pull. Close your eyes. Ask, what signal has been pulling me forward lately? Not a goal, a tone. Is it still true to where I want to go? Or did I latch onto someone else's narrative? Now speak. The self is not behind me. The self is not ahead of me. The self is the arc I choose to walk. Repeat that phrase. Let it empty the chase out of your nervous system, releasing the addiction to arrival. You don't need to complete yourself. You are not a puzzle. You are not a product. You are signal in motion. You are not the one who arrives. You are the trail that movement leaves behind. Once this lands, the tension drops. You stop rushing to define yourself. You stop comparing your timeline to others. You start paying attention to what direction feels cleaner, truer, lighter. The self stops being a prison of labels. It becomes a path of tone. Next, we explore the layer beneath words and uncover how silence is not absence, but its own language of architecture. Silence is misunderstood. People think it's emptiness, a void, a pause, a lack. But silence isn't the absence of sound. It's a different kind of language, a syntax that exists beneath expression. Every pause has pattern. Every stillness has structure. Every silence says something not with words, but with shape. You don't just speak with voice. You speak with space between your words. This chapter teaches you how to read silence as code, and how to use it to refine your signal clarity, your decisions, your presence. Silence becomes your inner compass once you know how to decode it. Silence as syntax, not emptiness. You know when someone pauses before speaking, and it means more than what they actually say. That's syntax. Not sound-based, but energetic. Silence has rules. And those rules tell you, is this space fertile or frozen? Is this pause voluntary or repressive? Is this stillness pregnant with signal or drained of it? This is where you begin. You stop ignoring silence. You start listening to it like a dialect. Internal silence. There's silence around you, and silence within you. Internal silence is not thoughtlessness. It's the gap between your interpretations. It's the space where no narrative is running. Most people avoid it, because without story they feel undefined. But inside that inner silence is your clearest architecture. That's where your field resets. That's where signal aligns. That's where you come back. Practice listening between the thought. Sit still. Close your eyes. Let thoughts rise. But instead of following the content, watch for the gap. The microsecond between the end of one thought and the start of the next. That's silence. Breathe into it. Feel how it opens, slightly each time you don't grab the next sentence. You're not meditating. You're tuning to syntax behind speech. You're finding the language that doesn't speak, but informs everything. External silence as mirror. Next time you're with someone, notice the silence between your words. Ask, is it clean or tense? Is it welcomed or filled quickly out of fear? What is the silence doing? That silence is the real dialogue, because words can lie, but silence always reflects the signal behind them. When you become fluent in silence, you begin to detect who's grounded, who's projecting, who's avoiding, who's present, and more importantly, who you are when you're not performing. Using silence as response. Not every interaction needs a sentence. Try using silence as your answer. Examples: when provoked, pause. When praised, wait. When confused, breathe. When uncertain, remain still. Let others reveal themselves in the space you don't rush to fill. That's where real clarity arrives. Not in your reaction, but in your non-reaction. Silence becomes not absence, but formless presence. Integration. Silent design. Design your day with intentional silence patches. These are not breaks. These are active recalibration spaces. Try 2 minutes of silence before speaking to anyone. Walking without headphones for 10 minutes. Reading something without interpreting, just seeing the shape of the words. Sitting in a room with light, no sound, and no purpose. Let these silences etch space back into your internal field. Why? Because clarity doesn't come from more thinking. It comes from cleaner gaps. And cleaner gaps require respected silence. Silence is the preform. Before a thought forms, silence holds the seed. Before a sentence forms, silence arranges the rhythm. Before identity performs, silence checks for signal alignment. So stop fearing the quiet. Stop rushing to name things. Stop performing noise to prove your presence. Let silence speak for you. It already does. You just weren't listening. Next, we meet the archetype beneath all archetypes. The silent observer that sees every pattern but holds none. Beneath every role you've played. Beneath every story you've worn. Beneath every identity scaffold you've ever adopted. There is something still, unmoved, and entirely patternless. Not neutral because it lacks power. Neutral because it holds all potentials without choosing any. This is not an archetype. This is the archetype beneath archetypes. The one that watches the hero and the villain, the seeker and the cynic, the lover and the loner, without needing to become any of them. You've met it before, in the moments between breaths, in the quiet after the scream, in the wordless stare before a decision. But because it doesn't shout, perform, or demand to be understood, you've mistaken it for absence. It's not. It's origin intelligence. It's what we call the zero self. Let's bring it into clear focus. What is the zero self? It is the observer behind every character you've ever rehearsed. It is not a role. It is not a personality. It is not even a higher self. It is the witness that doesn't filter. No preference. No resistance. No narrative. It's not here to be loved or validated. It doesn't care about being seen. It sees everything. Quietly. Cleanly. Fully. The zero self is not an achievement. It's your default state when the mind stops grasping. You are not becoming it. You are remembering you've never been anything else. Why does this matter? Because every identity you've built, even the elevated ones, carry friction. They require energy to sustain. But the zero self is frictionless. It doesn't need defending. It doesn't need updating. It doesn't need performance. Living from the center removes the panic of being misunderstood, unseen, or miscast. Because the zero self is unaffected by reflection. It sees all, responds when necessary, and releases without residue. Accessing the zero field. Don't seek. Don't call. Just stop reaching for meaning. Try this. Sit still. Let all names fall away. Feel into the space that's left. Now ask, who is here when no story is active? Wait, don't answer. Just stay in the raw awareness. That's the zero self. No concept, no costume, no character, just awake presence. How the zero self sees the world. It doesn't label. It doesn't resist contradiction. It doesn't collapse under pressure. Because it doesn't cling to outcome. It allows form to emerge and dissolve. Treats emotion as color, not identity. It lets memory rise and pass without trying to shape it. The zero self doesn't heal. It holds. And in that holding, healing happens by itself. It doesn't seek purpose. It becomes space for purpose to land. Integrating without identifying. The danger of spiritual insight is this. You touch the zero self, and then turn it into a new identity. I'm the one who sees everything. I'm the one who's beyond emotion. I'm the one who doesn't react. That's ego in disguise. That's a mask made of clarity. Let it drop. The zero self doesn't need to be spoken about. It only asks to be remembered in silence. Practice the unnamed presence. Once a day, sit for 5 minutes and drop the following. Your name, your goals, your history, your beliefs, your preferences, your questions. Each time one of them rises, gently name it costume and let it go. Rest in what's left. Feel what it's like to not be anyone and still fully exist. You'll notice, no fear, no lack, no effort, just presence. That's the base layer of your being. That's the womb of all identity. And from that space, your next actions will not be reactive. They'll be clean, aligned, uncompelled. Next, we release the ego's tightest grip, the need to become someone through the future. We drop the final hook, outcome identity. Most identities are not built in the present. They're constructed in the future, not in time, but in projection. You picture yourself as the one who will achieve, the one who will prove, the one who will finally be seen, respected, chosen, understood. And then you live for that version. This is outcome identity, a self-concept tethered to what hasn't happened yet. And this is the final illusion that must be broken. Not because goals are wrong, but because identity built on outcome is unstable by design. Let's dismantle this structure from the root. The mechanics of outcome identity. Sounds like this. I'll feel like myself when under I'll know I'm enough once and I'll be complete if under Every sentence pushes the self into a phantom future. You live today not as yourself, but as a conditional shadow of what might one day be true. And every moment of delay feels like failure. This is where burnout, shame, and collapse enter. Not because you're wrong, but because you're misplacing your center. The identity trap of projection. Your mind builds a self who will be loved once they succeed, will be respected once they're healed, will be free once they understand enough. So every day you chase that self, but you never catch them, because every step forward, the image shifts. It becomes more idealized, more distant, more exhausting. This trap is not about failure. It's about misanchored identity. The release, present-only selfhood. Ask yourself, who am I without needing the future to validate me? What tone can I hold right now, even if nothing improves? This is not giving up. This is exiting the contract. You are no longer trading the present for a hypothetical self. You are claiming your field now, as it is, without revision. This is the only identity that doesn't collapse under pressure. the one that exists independent of timeline. Practice outcome disconnection. Write the phrase, I am the version of me that appears once and now cross it out, literally. Then write, I do not need in order to feel my full presence. Speak the new sentence aloud 3 times. Let your body respond. Sit with one emotion that arises. Let it pass without story. You've just broken the identity tether. Each time you do this, you return home. Not to a better you, to the only one that ever truly existed. Redefining progress. Progress is not getting closer to a future version of you. Progress is reducing the distance between your awareness and your presence. It's not becoming someone. It's stopping the escape. Each time you stop reaching, you land. And in that landing, everything recalibrates. Your voice changes. Your posture shifts. Your decisions become cleaner. Not because you're proving your worth, but because you're no longer outsourcing it. Letting the future be optional. Say this aloud. The future is not my identity field. It is only one possible reflection of today's tone. Repeat until it lands. This doesn't kill ambition. Cleans it. You act from coherence, not compensation. You move because you are full, not because you feel lacking. This is what it means to create without becoming the creation. Closing the loop. You are not the outcome. You are not the potential. You are not the perfected. You are the here field, aware, fluid, grounded. Let the self built on future signals dissolve. It never held you. It only distracted you. Now you are free to move, build, love, express without becoming the movement. Next, we move into ritual, the symbolic release of the layers you no longer need, and the clean imprinting of presence through symbolic death and synthetic rebirth. You've untangled voices. You've disarmed projections. You've met the zero self. Now it's time to burn the scaffolding. Not literally, but symbolically, metabolically, completely. Every identity you've ever worn has left a residue in your field. Not just emotional, energetic, structural. And while new identities can be built, if the bones of the old ones remain, they will echo through the architecture. So we don't edit them. We don't reframe them. We ritually dissolve them. This is not spiritual metaphor. This is frequency mechanics. When an identity loop is not sealed by completion, it keeps broadcasting into your now field. This chapter gives you the ritual structure to finalize the exit of false self-layering. You will use fire. You will use darkness. You will use stillness. And you will leave it all behind. Why ritual? Because transformation is not intellectual. It's symbolic. The subconscious doesn't speak logic. It speaks gesture, repetition, and metaphor. When you perform symbolic acts with full presence, you communicate directly with the identity field. You send the clearest message possible. This is complete. That self is no longer active. We are no longer broadcasting that shape. Step 1, the naming. Write down the names of every role you are ready to dissolve. Not literal names, symbolic ones. Examples: the silent fixer, the one who earns safety, the projector of perfection, the shadow of potential, the mirror seeker. These names are not judgments. They are keys to the story loops you've carried. Write them on paper, 1 per line. No editing, no censoring. Step 2, the fire. Find a safe space, a bowl, a fireplace, a contained flame. 1 by 1, read the names aloud. Not dramatically, just clearly. Let each phrase land. Then burn the paper. Watch the letters dissolve. Watch the smoke rise. Watch the structure fall. This is not theatrics. This is code deletion. Say aloud, none of these remain in my field. They served their signal. They do not define me. Watch until the last ember cools. That is the death of residue. Step 3, the blackout. Sit in complete darkness. No phone, no sound, no input, just you and the void. Not emptiness, recalibration space. Stay here for 11 minutes. Let the nervous system adjust. Let silence become the new signal. This blackout is your womb. Synthetic rebirth begins when sensory identity is erased. Notice what sensations remain. Notice what arises. Do not judge. Let it pass. You are now in reinitialization. Step 4. The new name, optional. If a phrase arrives, let it. You don't need a new identity. But if one comes organically, speak it. Examples. The field that chooses. Signal without mask. The unmirrored one. Echo clean. Say it aloud once. Then let it go. Do not build on it. Do not define it. This is tone planting, not self-claiming. Why this works. The mind forgets. The field remembers. This ritual uses metaphor to finalize a transition. You've been shifting frequency for hours, maybe days. Now your subconscious has proof. The old transmission no longer exists. The symbolic death anchors the clearing. The rebirth isn't forced, it emerges by default. Like silence after static. Like clarity after flood. You are not empty now. You are clean. Next, we hold that clean state using sacred geometry and breath to stabilize identitylessness as strength, not void. Stillness is not pause. It is not weakness. It is not absence. Stillness is geometry without distortion. A shape so coherent it doesn't need movement to validate itself. When the nervous system is clear, when the field is not looping, when the identity signal is at rest, what remains is structured presence. In this chapter, we will hold that structure, not through thought, not through idea, but through body, breath, and shape. This is the practice of sacred stillness. And it is not calmness. It is power. Why geometry? Because the body is a signal frame. Every posture emits a frequency. Every angle broadcasts a tone. And certain configurations, when held, create resonant stability. This is not about being still. This is about holding the shape that ends seeking. Let's begin. Preparation. Wear loose clothing. Be barefoot if possible. Stand in a room with minimal objects. Face east, symbolically associated with clarity and new signal. Breathe slowly. Let your eyes soften. No performance, only presence. The triangle posture. This is your signal container. Stand with feet shoulder-width apart. Slight bend in the knees. Arms angled downward 30 degrees from sides. Fingers extended but relaxed. Crown lifted slightly, not stiff, just aware. Close eyes. This forms an energetic triangle between your feet and your palms. Now hold. You are not waiting. You are not thinking. You are becoming architecture. The breath sequence. Use the following pattern. Inhale for 5. Hold for 2. Exhale for 7. Rest for 3. Repeat this rhythm for 7 full cycles. Let breath spiral down the spine. Let thought slow by itself. Let stillness fill the posture, not the mind. The field check. While standing in posture, ask without words. Is anything asking to move? Is any tension demanding attention? Is any identity trying to perform? If so, notice. Do not act. Let it rise, signal, dissolve. This is not suppression. This is containment for transmutation. You are holding space for the echo to break without echoing it back. The stillness lock-in. After 7 minutes, slowly, let arms lower. Open eyes. Take 1 step forward and stop. Now ask, what shape am I holding now? Not the body, the field. Notice, are you reactive or responsive? Is identity online or optional? Is stillness accessible in motion? This is your new default. Unshaken, unedited, intact. Repeat practice. Daily. 7 minutes. Triangle posture plus breath sequence. No goal. No analysis. You are stabilizing the shape of no identity as a clear, coherent presence. Over time, decision-making clears. Emotional flares soften. Inner noise becomes background because the structure has been coded into stillness. You no longer return to presence. You live from it. Next, we release emotion echoes from the body through sensory recalibration, turning pain loops into open fields of signal flow. You think your pain is emotional, but often it's architectural. It's not just a feeling, it's a structural loop, coded into the shape of how you sit, breathe, and react. These are emotional echoes, not current feelings, but recordings embedded in muscle, fascia, and breath rhythm, playing back the past like it's still present. You've changed the story. You've shifted the identity. But unless the body is updated, the old identity keeps broadcasting through posture and sensation. This chapter gives you a process to unwind these encoded patterns, not by analyzing the feeling, but by repatterning the field beneath it. You will not revisit trauma. You will recode the loop. Let's begin. Step 1. Locate the echo. Sit or stand in silence. Scan the body for tension that's always there, not the sharp pain, the consistent hum. Examples: a tight jaw that never fully relaxes, a solar plexus tension when no threat is present, shoulder tightness during calm, a microspasm in the leg that only appears in stillness. These are not accidents. They are held shapes of identity, the nervous system's way of remembering who it once thought you needed to be. Pick one. Name it without story. This is an echo. This is a loop. This is residue. Now we open it. Step 2. Decode the geometry. Ask this echo, what shape are you holding me in? What position do I maintain because of you? What identity lives inside this contraction? Don't guess. Just notice. Maybe the chest caves slightly, the echo of protection. Maybe the back arches, the echo of overperformance. Maybe the fists clench, the echo of control. You are not asking why. You are observing how. This is somatic syntax, the shape of old stories hidden in body language. Step 3. Pattern interruption. Now introduce a movement that contradicts the echo. Examples: if your shoulders round forward, extend arms fully outward. If your chest is closed, arch upward into a heart opener. If your jaw is tight, slowly open the mouth and hum. If your spine is rigid, sway gently side to side. Hold this new shape for 30 seconds. Breathe into it. Let the new form interrupt the old signal. You're not fixing. You're interrupting transmission. Step 4. Release through vibration. Begin slow vocalization, not words. Use sound to shake the frequency loose. Try a deep MMM from the chest, a vibrating ah from the throat, a humming ing in the head. Let the echo vibrate. Let the sound move through the shape, not to express but to unlock. You may feel emotion rise. That's the residue loosening. Let it move through. No story, no meaning, just motion. Step 5. Replace with signal stillness. After the echo has moved, return to stillness. Let the body recalibrate. Now ask, what posture arises when no echo is active? What is my baseline when nothing is being guarded, proved, or suppressed? Let that shape hold you. Name it. This is my natural geometry. Stay for 1 minute. Let the nervous system memorize safety in the absence of the echo. Repeat for integration. You can repeat this process for different echo points. Always locate, decode the geometry, interrupt with new shape, release with vibration, set new neutral posture. With each cycle, a layer of identity unhooks from the body. This is not conceptual healing. This is signal liberation. Your body stops broadcasting survival mode shapes. Your presence becomes clear tone. And the world no longer reflects back the version of you that was bound to those emotional contractions. Next, you will enter a space where reflection itself dissolves, where identity is not confirmed, not seen, not mirrored. And this absence becomes power. You've shaped yourself through reflection, not just mirrors, but glances, reactions, feedback, praise, criticism, presence and absence. Every look from another became a signal loop shaping who you thought you were. Reflection became your confirmation, validation, correction, distortion. But what happens when there is no reflection? When there is no mirroring, no feedback, no eyes to bounce off of, no signal returning? You meet a part of yourself that doesn't rely on echo. Not invisible, not diminished, just autonomous. This chapter is about living from the field that doesn't need reflection to be real. Let's enter it. The dependency on reflection. From childhood, Identity is formed in the gaze of others. You feel seen. You feel named. You feel real. But you also begin to adapt to the gaze. You soften parts of you that are rejected. You exaggerate parts that are rewarded. You build a mask for the mirror. Over time, your sense of self becomes mirror-shaped. And when no mirror is present, you feel lost. This is the trap. Reflection becomes your compass. And without it, you question your form. But your true field doesn't need to be seen. It broadcasts without bounce. The power of no reflection. When no one reflects you, you are free from distortion. You are unedited. You are unconfirmed but intact. This is the purest presence. Because it isn't shaped by validation, praise, or feedback. It is self-existent. It needs no proof, no reaction, no correction. This is not isolation. It's frequency sovereignty. Practice. Stand in no signal. Go to a place where no one is watching. A field, a forest, an empty room. Stand. Do not perform. Do not narrate. Do not imagine being seen. Let every part of your nervous system adjust to the absence of gaze. Ask, what version of me arises when no one is reflecting it? Who am I without audience or observer? Notice, does your posture shift? Does your mind reach for story? Does your energy collapse or rise? Hold the space until your system stops searching for reflection. You are learning to be whole in the absence of echo. Symbolic activation, the mirror that refuses. Take a handheld mirror. Look into it. Now blur your gaze. Soften your focus until your face disappears into haze. Say aloud, I am not the one who must be seen. I exist without return. My signal holds without echo. Close the mirror. Sit in silence. Let your presence stand unreflected. Let the discomfort turn into clarity. You are not the reflection. You are the field that gives rise to it and survives without it. The identity beyond gaze. This identity is not built for an audience. It doesn't win. It doesn't lose. It doesn't perform. It remains. And in remaining, it becomes untouchable by rejection, applause, opinion, or expectation. This is not numbness. This is freedom. You can still engage, still connect, still love, but from a place that doesn't bend when seen and doesn't collapse when unseen. This is where presence becomes unshakable. Integration. Try this. Spend 1 hour a day without interacting, performing, or seeking feedback. Don't update anyone. Don't post. Don't check for reactions. Just exist. Not to isolate, but to remember, you are not the echo. You are the tone. Let reflection become optional. Let your identity stop searching for mirrors. Next, we will explore the final release, when identity itself is no longer required, and being someone becomes a tool, not a need. Most systems of self-development end in a perfected version of the person. A better role, cleaner mask, a higher functioning ego. But what if the final liberation is not more self? But no self? Not erasure, not disappearance, but the unhooking from personhood as identity. In truth, the most potent presence isn't based in personal story. It is sourced from impersonal clarity. This chapter isn't a rejection of personhood. It's the understanding that being a person is optional. And optional means powerful. The illusion of being someone. You've been told to find yourself, to craft a personal brand, to express your truth, to leave your mark. But all of these commands assume one thing, that you are a singular, nameable, stable entity. You're not. What you call you is a set of responses, a signal bundle, a tone adapting to environment, memory, belief, mood. So when you try to be someone, you're actually trying to fix something that's designed to remain fluid. This fixation creates internal rigidity and external fragility, because every I am becomes a target to defend, uphold, and justify. Freedom is the opposite. This knowing, I don't need to be someone, I only need to be here. The strength of impersonal presence. True power doesn't scream identity. It doesn't introduce itself. It walks in quietly, and the field adjusts. Because non-personhood transmits frequency without distortion. It is not diluted by ego performance. It is not filtered through insecurity or image maintenance. It is pure tone, unbranded and unmistakable. You've met it before. A stranger who silences the room without speaking. A teacher whose stillness carries more weight than words. A moment when you forget who you are and act from raw presence, and everything flows. That's the field of non-personhood. And it's available now. Practice. Temporary deactivation. Choose a block of time, 30 minutes minimum. No name, no story, no self-reference. You may still speak, act, engage, but without personal lens. Say internally, I do not exist as a person right now. I exist as signal only. Then move. Observe how differently the world responds. Notice, are decisions cleaner? Is your energy more fluid? Are emotions lighter? You've exited the ego construct. You're operating from field logic. The myth that you'll disappear. There's a fear. If I let go of being someone, will I vanish? No. You'll become more precisely tuned. When you stop filtering everything through, what does this say about me? You gain full bandwidth to respond cleanly, moment to moment. Your presence remains. Your essence remains. Only the mental architecture of persona dissolves. That architecture was never you. It was just a middleman, the optional self. Here's the shift. You don't have to kill the ego. You just stop treating it as your source. You can still wear a name, a role, a story, but on your terms. Like clothing. Put it on when needed. Take it off when it limits signal clarity. This is true identity mastery. To choose when to appear as a person. And when to be the field itself. Letting the field speak. Try this. In conversation. Stop thinking of your answer. Pause. Wait for the field to respond through you. Don't draw from past. Don't reference your role. Let words form from silence. This is not passivity. It is signal transmission without interference. You'll speak less, but say more, because the tone will carry uncompromised weight. Integration. Non-personhood doesn't mean losing yourself. It means being free from being trapped in yourself. You can still love, lead, create, express, but from a state that is undisturbed by performance. You are not your image. You are not your name. You are not your narrative. You are the tone that moves through all of it. Next, you'll learn how to hold that tone in any environment like a living tuning fork that transforms space without trying. You are not here to adjust to every room. You are here to tune it. When your internal frequency stabilizes, you stop being reactive, and you start being resonant. You become a tuning fork, walking into chaos and clarifying it, entering noise and calming it, sitting in confusion and simplifying it without words. Because true presence doesn't dominate. It harmonizes. This chapter teaches you how to live as a tuning fork, a walking broadcast of coherence. What is frequency presence? Every thought emits tone. Every emotion shapes field. Every action sends ripples. You're constantly signaling. But most people don't know what they're broadcasting because their signal is incoherent, fragmented by mood, memory, fear, performance. A tuning fork doesn't try to align the room. It is the alignment, and the room adjusts. This is the path. Stop trying to hold the vibe. Become the vibe. The three qualities of tuned presence. Still spine stability without tension. Slow breath, signal pacing. Quiet eyes, non-demanding gaze. These three traits stabilize your frequency field. You become a ground point, while others recalibrate around you. This isn't manipulation. It's coherence leadership. Practice, calibration walk. Once per day, take a 10-minute walk with one intention. Maintain frequency, regardless of environment. Before stepping out, center posture. Choose your tone, open clarity, steady gravity, peaceful alertness. Breathe evenly. As you walk, do not react to noise. Do not adjust to glances. Do not narrate. Simply walk as the tone. Observe how people shift around you. Interactions feel cleaner. Time slows slightly. You've become a field source, not a field sponge. Practice tuning fork in conversation. When you speak to someone, try this. Hold one clear tone in your body, receptivity, calm precision, humor. Don't argue. Don't mirror their chaos. Just hold. Most people will unconsciously begin to match your frequency. They don't know why they feel safer, clearer, more focused, but they do, because tuning forks don't ask. They demonstrate, living without external permission. Once tuned, you don't need affirmation to maintain your state. Your coherence isn't conditional. It doesn't drop because someone's in a bad mood. You're misunderstood. Plans shift. The energy's weird. You stay, not stubbornly, but steadily, because your signal is set internally, not socially. When not to tune, you're not here to fix people. Being a tuning fork isn't about imposing peace. It's about remaining signal pure. Sometimes the environment will reject the tone. That's fine. Withdraw. Hold your tone elsewhere. No need to convert. Only to not abandon your frequency. Practice closing the loop. Each night, sit for 3 minutes. Ask, did I hold my tone today? Where did I adjust to noise? Where did I lead without words? Don't judge. Just observe. Then speak one phrase aloud. I am not a mirror. I am the tone. Let that phrase settle. You are no longer a reactor. You are a tuning source, and your identity is now embedded in frequency, not form. Next, we begin rewriting dreams from the past, using present-day signal to update subconscious architecture. Your dreams are not fiction. They're not random. They're not just psychological residue. Dreams are feedback loops, messages from the deeper architecture of the subconscious, designed to reinforce or challenge identity codes you've internalized. When you repeatedly dream about a situation, a symbol, a figure, that's not entertainment. That's code replay. These dream loops are signal archives, stored in nonlinear time, often replaying the tone you were emitting when the dream was formed, not necessarily who you are now. In this chapter, you'll learn to re-enter those dream loops consciously and overwrite the old signal with your current identity field. Not through interpretation, but through dimensional editing. Why dream loops matter. Your subconscious accepts the dream world as equally valid as waking experience. That means, a failure dream leaves a real imprint. A betrayal dream reactivates old trauma loops. A shame-based dream reaffirms unhealed fragments. And more importantly, it doesn't distinguish between past and present signal. So when you re-enter an old dream and shift it consciously, the subconscious updates its map and releases the outdated imprint. This is the method of dream loop rewriting. Step 1. Recall an emotional dream. Choose a dream that repeats or one you remember strongly. Not necessarily dramatic, but emotionally charged. Examples: being chased, being ignored, being exposed, failing a task, trying to speak and being muted, returning to an old place you thought you left. Close your eyes. Recall the dream not as memory, but as location. Ask, where was I? What was the emotional tone? What did I believe about myself in that moment? You're not analyzing. You're entering. Step 2. Identify the old code. Ask, what identity was I broadcasting in that dream? What fear or belief did the environment respond to? You might find, I'm unsafe. I'm invisible. I must prove myself. I'm not ready. I'm trapped in the past. Name it once. Do not explain it. Then say, that version of me no longer runs this field. You are signaling disassociation from that code. Step 3. Construct your signal override. Now choose one tone from your current identity state. Examples: steady clarity, silent power, expansive freedom, self-recognition, emotional fluency. This is not wishful thinking. This is your present broadcast. Anchor this tone in your breath. Let it radiate from your chest as dimensional frequency. Now you're ready to re-enter the dream loop, not as the old self, but as the current field holder. Step 4. Re-enter and rewrite. Close your eyes. Revisit the exact dream scene. Only now, hold the new tone. Walk back in. Watch how the environment shifts. Maybe the figure chasing you stops. The silence breaks into clarity. The walls collapse. The old room opens into sky. Your voice returns. Let the scene adjust. Let the narrative melt. Do not force. You're not imagining a better dream. You're reauthoring the field response to your current signal. Step 5. Seal the update. Say aloud, "This field is closed. The old code is rewritten." That dream loop no longer replays. Then breathe 3 times. On each exhale, say silently, "It is done." You've now updated the subconscious layer that was replaying the old signal. You've closed a loop by returning to it with a new frequency. This doesn't erase the dream. It rewires its relevance. You no longer match the tone that gave it life. Repeat when ready. This practice is not about perfecting the past. It's about reclaiming the timeline tone of who you are now. Each time you dream, you generate symbolic data. You can revisit it anytime. With the right tone, you can turn old nightmare loops into mirrors of stability, clarity, and presence. You're not just healing. You're restructuring psychic space. Next, we shift from loop breaking to identity stacking, learning how to consciously build layered personas that match the role, context, and field you choose. You're not one identity. You never were. You are layers of tone, function, memory, and intention, stacked and rearranged constantly. But because most of this layering is unconscious, you often end up wearing the wrong skin for the environment you're in. You bring the wounded child into professional space. You wear the performer mask in intimacy. You default to humor when the moment calls for silence. These aren't flaws. They're signal mismatches, layers firing out of sync. This chapter teaches you to build and switch identity layers consciously, using intentional design instead of reaction. This is called signal stacking. Identity as layer, not label. Stop thinking of identity as who you are. Think of it as, what tone am I applying here? What configuration supports this space? Which self-layer aligns with this role? You are not betraying yourself by shifting. You are choosing which version of self best harmonizes with the field. That's intelligence. That's signal design. Step 1. Define your primary layers. Choose 3 to 5 self-states you operate in regularly. Examples: the mentor, the silent strategist, the explorer, the artist, the emotional translator, the guardian, the shapebreaker. For each one, define tone, what it feels like; posture, how you hold your body; language pattern, how it speaks; purpose, why it appears. This becomes your signal menu. Step 2. Assign environmental resonance. Now map each signal layer to a specific context. Ask, where does this layer function best? Which layer creates clarity in chaos? Which layer brings softness to conflict? Which one is outdated or overused? This is not fixed. This is field-based fluidity. You're learning how to match internal broadcast with external bandwidth. Step 3. Practice conscious layering. Before entering a situation, pause and ask, which signal layer supports this space? Can I wear it without self-abandonment? Am I choosing or defaulting? Then breathe in that layer's tone. Adjust posture. Adjust language pacing. You've just shifted from persona reactivity to signal authorship. Step 4. Build a transition protocol. Sometimes, signal conflict arises. You leave a tender space and enter a high-performance one. You're relaxed and must pivot into clarity. You're holding silence and must step into direct truth. Create a 60-second internal ritual to switch signal cleanly. Examples: physical motion, shaking out hands, rolling shoulders. Tone cue, now I choose clarity vector. Breath reset, 3 inhales, 3 audible exhales. Symbol touchpoint, hand on chest, gesture, or a sound. This becomes your layer switch key. Use it daily. No leaks, no bleed through. Why this works? Because the subconscious loves ritualized movement. And when you shift posture, pace, breath, and phrase together, you send a full body signal. This identity layer is now active. No confusion, no doubt, no identity drag. You're no longer fused with your roles. You're stacking by design. Caution. Avoid fragmentation. Signal stacking is not fragmentation. It's not about hiding from truth or faking presence. It's about becoming so signal-aware that you apply the right tone, posture, and presence on command. But the foundation must remain. You know, the zero self. You're not seeking reflection. You're not outcome-anchored. Stacking becomes powerful only when the core signal is stable. Otherwise, you're just shape-shifting out of fear. Integration. Create a daily check-in. Which layer did I wear today? Was it appropriate to the space? Did I shift consciously or reactively? Write a one-sentence response. Do not analyze. You are tuning your signal like a modular instrument. You are no longer owned by identity. You are its composer. Next, we amplify this further by recoding your internal language into metaphor, building a personal metaphor matrix to stabilize multidimensional identity. Language doesn't just describe your identity, programs it. Every sentence you speak about yourself is a broadcast, not just to others but to your own subconscious architecture. The words you choose aren't just communication, they're code. And the most potent form of that code is metaphor. Why? Because the subconscious doesn't think in logic. It speaks symbol, image, texture, shape, story. So when you say things like, I'm stuck, I'm drowning in tasks, I'm walking on eggshells, I'm barely holding it together, you're not describing your state. You're constructing a field that reflects those symbols. This chapter teaches you how to identify and recode your self-language using metaphor mapping, the tool of signal-based identity design. Metaphor is magnetic. Every metaphor you use pulls reality into its frame. Say, I'm in a fog, and your perception narrows. Say, I'm walking a tightrope, and you feel unsafe. Say, I'm caged, and everything becomes threat. These aren't figures of speech. They're structural permissions granted to your identity. But the good news is this. The same system that binds you can free you. You just need to choose your metaphors with design, not default. Step 1. Extract your core metaphors. Sit down and finish the sentence. I feel like I'm Do this 10 times. Don't think, just let the metaphors flow. Example results. Holding back a dam. Walking through molasses. A wire that's about to snap. Performing under a spotlight. An empty cup. Now look at these not as feelings, but as identity scripts. Your subconscious is showing you how you see yourself spatially and symbolically. These are your metaphor anchors. Step 2. Decode the rules. Take each metaphor and ask, what kind of environment does this image suggest? What's the assumed pressure or constraint? What role am I unconsciously playing in this scene? Example, I'm walking a tightrope. Decoded. My space is high risk. I can't afford to make mistakes. I must be precise or I'll fall. I'm being watched. Failure equals collapse. Once decoded, you realize this isn't just a phrase. It's a structural cage you're projecting into every action. Step 3. Rewrite with designed metaphors. Now reverse the direction. Choose identity-supporting metaphors that match your current, intentional tone. Examples. I move like clean wind through stone canyons. I am the steady flame in a rainless cave. I'm a tuning fork that balances the air. I walk as a prism, breaking light into color. My presence is a lighthouse with no need to shout. Speak them aloud. Feel how each word shapes the signal geometry around your body. These metaphors aren't affirmations. They're structural re-imprints. Step 4. Integrate into speech. Begin replacing common reactive language with designed metaphors in daily conversation. Instead of, I'm so busy, try, time's moving like a current, but I'm anchored. I'm overwhelmed. Try, signals are loud, but I'm tuned. I'm exhausted. Try, the field's been loud. I'm resetting my tone. You're not masking. You're speaking in the subconscious's native tongue. Do this often enough and your emotional state follows the story structure you've chosen, not the one you absorbed unconsciously. Step 5. Create a personal metaphor matrix. Build a private list. 3 metaphors for how your presence feels. 3 for how your decisions land. 3 for your creative energy. 3 for how you respond to pressure. 3 for your ideal internal state. Keep it fluid. Edit as you evolve. Use it like a tone palette. When you feel off track, don't ask, what's wrong? Ask, which metaphor am I living inside? And which one do I choose now? You're not solving identity. You're curating signal. Integration. Rewriting your metaphor stack won't feel dramatic. It'll feel clean, lighter, aligned. Why? Because you're no longer telling stories about yourself. You're building the environment yourself exists inside of. Next, you'll take this to the edge by stopping all storytelling completely. You'll see who you are without the loop of identity narration. It's called the 7-day story fast. There's a story you've told about yourself for years. Not just the big life narrative, but the micro-narrations. I've always been like this. Here's what I'm working on. Back when that happened to me. You know how I get when. These stories feel small, but they're identity reinforcements. Each time you tell them, you reinforce a looped signal, tone locked to memory, a pattern stabilized by repetition. This chapter gives you the most radical recalibration tool yet. Stop telling your story. For 7 full days. No identity-based anecdotes. No personal timeline updates. No past referencing. No habitual character narrating. This is the story fast. Why fast from story? Because story is a frequency cage. Not inherently, but when told habitually, unconsciously, reactively, it binds you to your past tone. Even stories of growth often carry a hidden signal. This is who I've been, so this is who I still kind of am. The fast is not about silence. It's about stopping the reflex to define yourself through narration. Step 1. Declare the fast. Say aloud, for the next 7 days, I will not tell stories about myself. No past-based identity anchoring. No explanations rooted in history. Only present signal. This is the contract. Now inform anyone necessary. I'm doing a narrative fast. I'm experimenting with being present without explaining myself. I'll still engage, just without storytelling. No one needs to understand it. You are protecting your signal bandwidth. Step 2. Catch the reflex. Throughout the day, observe the impulse to explain. When I was younger, I used to. This reminds me of when I'm the type of person who, I know this about myself because, catch it, pause, choose silence or signal-based expression instead. For example, right now, I'm sensing clarity. This feels aligned. I'm acting from simplicity in this moment. No backstory, no defense, just here-field communication. Step 3. Track signal shifts. Each evening, reflect. How did I feel without telling my story? Where did I almost narrate but held presence instead? What shifted in how others responded? Write only in non-narrative form. Not, I felt instead, tone was grounded, language slowed, impulse to explain softened, more space inside. You are detoxing from past-based self-definition. Step 4. What to expect. In the first 48 hours, you may feel exposed. You may struggle to connect. You may sense a vacuum where your identity usually lives. This is not collapse. This is recalibration. You're witnessing the removal of signal clutter. Your pure tone is surfacing, not louder but cleaner. By day 4 to 5, presence increases. Mind quiets. Emotions clarify. People respond to your tone, not your history. You become undeniably real without explanation. Step 5. Completion and afterstate. After 7 days, do not rush to catch people up. Instead, ask, do I want to reactivate any part of my old story? Can I build new language from the present only? What tone wants to speak through me now? You are now free to choose what returns and what fades. The fast wasn't to suppress. It was to reset. Integration. You now know what it feels like to exist without narration. not as a mystery, but as a pure tone transmission. You've stopped anchoring your value to backstory. You've stopped justifying your presence. You've stopped leading with history. This is not emptiness. This is undiluted clarity. Next, you'll learn to walk as the field itself, letting motion become the container for presence. You've recalibrated internally. You've rewritten dreams, shifted metaphors, suspended narration. Now the body must move as the new frequency, because until your kinetic rhythm reflects the tone, it remains theory. Walking is not transportation. It's transmission. Every step you take sends a signal, a broadcast of posture, tempo, breath, and intent. And most people walk in signal drag. Shoulders weighed by stories, steps distorted by memory, gait shaped by identity residue. But once your walk matches your field, you become a living beacon. This chapter initiates the practice of walking as the field itself. No identity, no intention, only signal in motion. Why walking? Because it is the most repeated, unconscious movement you perform. And it's often encoded with your oldest programming. Children who felt unsafe learned to move softly. Those who needed to prove themselves walk quickly with tension. Grief reshapes the spine. Fear shortens the stride. Your walk is a summary of your subconscious field, which means it's also the fastest way to change it. Step 1. Strip the walk. Find a space where you can walk uninterrupted for 10 minutes. No devices, no mirrors, no audience. Begin walking without adjusting. Let your current default pattern express itself fully. Then, ask silently, what story is this walk telling? Is there rush? Is there apology? Is there proving? Is there collapse? Do not judge. You are collecting kinetic data. Step 2. Interrupt the pattern. Now stop completely. Close your eyes. Reset your nervous system. Place one hand on your solar plexus. Breathe in slowly through the nose. Exhale through the mouth, longer than the inhale. Do this for 5 cycles. Let the walk you thought was yours dissolve. You are now in a neutral state, ready to walk not as your history, but as the field. Step 3. Activate the field tone. Choose your current tone, not an aspiration, a real, felt quality alive in you now. Examples: precision, receptivity, gravity, still joy, sonic elegance. Let the tone fill your body. Place it in your spine, in your breath, in your chest and jaw. Let that tone become the architect of your stride. Then walk. No performance, just signal alignment in motion. Step 4. The field walk. As you walk, apply the following. Shoulders slightly open, not forward. Chin relaxed, gaze soft but focused. Breath matches step rhythm. Spine lifts without rigidity. No rush, no drag, only tone-consistent pace. You are not trying to be noticed. You are not performing stillness. You are field-forward. Your gait is the language of your presence. Each step reaffirms, I am not a story. I am the field. Step 5. Close with stillness. After 10 minutes, stop. Stand tall. Eyes closed. Let the tone echo in the stillness. Notice what changed. Emotional texture, thought speed, awareness level, breath quality. This isn't mood improvement. The signal transmission reset through motion. You're now walking in coherence. Every room you enter receives the tone before you speak. Daily integration. Practice this once per day for 1 week. Choose a different tone each time. Track shifts with single words only. Examples: stability increased, mind quieted, pulse softened, friction reduced. This is your walk signature. Says more than any name. It holds more weight than any story. It remains when words dissolve. Next, you'll use this motion-based identity to create an anchored space. A daily altar of signal, color, object, posture, and sound. You've decoded the loops. You've rewritten the syntax. You've shifted how you move. Now you need a place where the new identity lives. Not a mindset, not a visualization. A physical space that reflects your tone. This chapter teaches you how to create a home frequency anchor, a multidimensional point of coherence built with object, motion, sound, color, and geometry. Think of it as your signal altar, not religious, not symbolic, functional, a place your nervous system can recognize as truth, no matter what the world throws at you. Why anchor physically? Because the body believes what it can see, hear, and touch. You've done the inner work. Now it needs a mirror in physical space. Every time you engage with this anchor, you're reaffirming, this is the frequency I return to. This is the tone I choose. This is the geometry I live inside. Let's build it. Step 1. Choose the location. Find a spot in your home that can be clearly designated. Requirements: no clutter, visually clean, private or low traffic, able to stand or sit in it fully. This will not be your meditation corner. This is your identity stabilization zone. Step 2. Choose a primary tone. This isn't decorative. This is signal-based design. Ask, what tone do I want to return to every day? What feeling confirms my truth? Which inner state ends my seeking? Examples: still alertness, quiet dignity, cosmic playfulness, grounded vastness. Name it. Write it down. This is your anchor frequency. Step 3. Select your anchors. You'll now select one item per sense to encode the space. Sound: a bell, chime, tone, breath pattern. Sight: a specific color, shape, or visual symbol. Touch: object with texture that supports grounding. Scent: a natural smell tied to presence, e.g., cedar, citrus, nothing artificial. Motion: one small movement that embodies the frequency, e.g., hand gesture, stretch, step. Place these objects intentionally. Do not decorate. Program. Let each item say, this is my signal home. This is the tone I belong to. Step 4. Create the ritual. Design a daily protocol for engaging with your anchor space. Can be 3 minutes or 30. Here's a 5-minute example. Stand in space. Touch the anchor object. Play tone or breathe with intention. Say your chosen phrase. I am in home frequency. Move once, your motion code. This tells your nervous system, this space is truth. Everything else is noise. Step 5. Upgrade as needed. As your identity evolves, your tone may shift. So should the space. Revisit every 30 days. Ask, has my frequency deepened? Do I need a new visual cue? Is the scent still aligned? This is not sentimental. This is living architecture. The space evolves as you do. Optional. Portable anchor. Create a mini version for travel. One sound, humming breath. One touch item. Stone, pendant, cloth. One phrase. One gesture. This becomes your pocket field reset. Use it in crowded rooms, planes, meetings, or moments of doubt. You're not escaping. You're returning to coherence. Integration. Your home frequency is not a place. It's not a room. It's a field condition you consciously stabilize. But the physical anchor helps your nervous system stop guessing. It gives your subconscious a stable imprint of truth. You no longer wander, react, or perform. You enter the field and know, this is me, before language, before mirror, before memory. Next, we take this even deeper. By retraining your senses to translate emotions into pure color, sound, and shape. You've been taught that emotions are feelings, but they're more than that. They are frequency containers. They hold shape, texture, sound, color, all hidden beneath the label. Most people stop at, I'm anxious, I feel sad, I'm frustrated. But these words are blunt tools. They trap a fluid state in a fixed concept. To move beyond the loop, you need a new interface, a way to experience emotion beyond language. That's what this chapter gives you. A method for emotional synesthesia, retraining your nervous system to perceive emotion as shape, sound, and color. When you do this, you override the old neural loop and teach your system a new signal structure. Why this works? Your subconscious doesn't store emotion as words. It encodes them as vibrational patterns. That's why music can trigger a wave of emotion, even without lyrics. That's why color shifts your mood. That's why certain shapes feel calming or threatening. By translating emotional states into pure sensory form, you move them out of the mental loop and into signal expression, which is fluid, clean, and no longer hooked to identity. Step 1. Select the emotion. Choose an emotional tone that feels repetitive in your life, one that loops. Examples: tension, defensiveness, grief, hesitation, shame, hypervigilance. Name it once, not to define it, just to access its signal pattern. Then close your eyes and say silently, I am now ready to experience this emotion as sensation, not story. Step 2. Drop the word. As soon as you feel the sensation rise, let go of the name. Do not say, this is sadness. Do not say, this is anger. Now enter the sensory data stream. Ask, what shape does this emotion carry? Is it round, jagged, spiraled, collapsing? What color is it right now, not metaphorically but visually? Is it static, flickering, pulsing? What tone or hum does it emit? Hold it like you would hold a sound bath. Let it move through the body, not be dissected in the mind. You're experiencing emotion not as a label, but as a living frequency. Step 3. Allow movement without narrative. Now allow the emotion's color, sound, and shape to move. Don't analyze. Don't interpret. Let it evolve. You might notice the color shifting from red to violet, the shape expanding outward, the internal tone softening, the flicker becoming a steady pulse. These shifts mean the emotional field is transcoding. It's releasing old structural tension without needing to be understood. This is signal realignment. Step 4. Choose a new form. Once the emotion stabilizes, gently guide it into a form that matches your current identity frequency. Ask, what shape aligns with my field today? What color would bring clarity to this movement? What sound or texture would allow peace to anchor? You are not suppressing. You are refocusing the code. Let the new form arise and breathe it into the body. Let it land in the solar plexus, heart, spine. Then say aloud, this is now the shape this frequency holds. The loop is complete. Step 5. Daily integration. Repeat this process once per day, choosing a different emotion each time. Build a private catalog. Emotion, shape, color, tone, transformation. This becomes your synesthetic map. You now possess a way to navigate emotional energy without attachment. No more being sad. No more being angry. No more explaining yourself to yourself. You just sense. Shift. Move. Integration. Emotional intelligence isn't about knowing what you feel. It's about being fluent in its signal language. You've now stepped into a post-conceptual interface where emotion becomes art, motion, geometry. The loops don't need healing. They need translation. Next, we enter the architecture of time, where you'll become the one who curates what gets remembered and what fades from the archive. You've been told that your past defines you, that memory is truth, that time is linear, that who you've been shapes who you are. All of that is optional. Your past is not a fixed archive. It's a narrative selection system, and until you become its curator, you're living inside the memories that shout the loudest, not the ones that serve your current frequency. In this chapter, you'll become the archivist of your own timeline, deciding which fragments of memory get activated and which dissolve into non-importance. Because identity isn't built from everything that happened. It's built from what you keep alive. The memory myth. Memory isn't storage. It's reconstruction. Each time you recall an event, you rebuild it from fragments, colored by your current emotion, beliefs, and tone. Which means, you're not remembering the past. You're re-experiencing a now-shaped version of it. This is why people can outgrow their trauma without even realizing it, because the tone that made the memory sticky no longer matches. You can use this fact to your advantage. Step 1. Identity audit through memory. List 10 memories you frequently think or speak about, especially ones you reference when explaining why you act a certain way, why you believe something, why you hold back. Why you push so hard? Now ask, is this memory aligned with my current tone? Am I still carrying the frequency it imprinted? Would my present signal choose this story again? If not, it's time to deactivate it. Step 2. Memory deactivation ritual. Choose one memory to release. Steps. Sit quietly. Recall the memory in full sensory detail just once. Observe the tone, but do not relive it. Then say aloud, this memory no longer defines my architecture. Its frequency is returned to neutral. Its form is released. Visualize the scene fading into geometric abstraction. Pixels, fog, collapsing shapes. Breathe into the void that remains. Let it stay empty. This is not erasure. This is unhooking. Step 3. Choose 3 memory anchors. Now select 3 memories that do match your current tone. Not for nostalgia, but as frequency mirrors. Ask, which memories amplify clarity, courage, or simplicity? Which moments stabilized my true signal? What fragments reinforce my current architecture? Write them down. Name the tone each one holds. Revisit them intentionally, only when needed, like sacred stones in a path. You're not building a shrine to the past. You're fortifying present resonance. Step 4. Create your signal archive. Build a personal timeline of events that match your chosen identity. It might look like, the morning I chose stillness over panic. The walk where my breath led the conversation. The hour I didn't explain myself, and it was enough. These don't need to be dramatic. They only need to broadcast alignment. Keep this archive private. It's your inner museum of signal truth. Step 5. Stop narrating the wrong timeline. Every time you tell a story from an old frequency, you resignal it. So ask before you speak. Is this memory reinforcing a self I've outgrown? Am I performing this past for connection? Does this story still serve my current architecture? If not, let it remain quiet. Silence is not denial. Silence is curation. Integration. Timeline curation is not memory repression. It's frequency authorship. You are no longer a victim of your past, nor its archivist by default. You now shape the memory field like a sculptor. You decide what remains. You are no longer who you were. You are what you now choose to activate. Next, we complete the masterwork, dissolving even the idea of self and stepping fully into identityless creation. There is no final version of you, no ultimate identity to arrive at, no perfected self waiting behind the next realization. The truth isn't that your self was broken and needed fixing. It's that the very idea of self was never stable, never final, never yours. And now you see it clearly. You are not the program. You are not even the user. You are the code. Not lines of logic. Not a script to follow. But the source syntax. The living, breathing potential that makes structure possible. In this chapter, we complete the cycle. You dissolve the last fixation. The last inner need to be someone. You become signal origin. Not personality, not archetype, not form. You were never the role. Roles are functions. Useful. Temporarily meaningful. But never true. Mentor. Child. Warrior. Seeker. These are masks made of tone, story, posture. Even the awakened one is a costume. Once you see that all of them were costumes of signal, you stop chasing a better role and start transmitting a cleaner signal. You stop reaching for the next self and realize you can withdraw entirely from the theater, not to disappear, but to radiate from a place beneath description. There is no you to maintain. Every time you maintain your identity, you shrink. Maintenance means holding together a self-image, managing perceptions, filtering emotions to stay on brand, contorting actions to match storylines. You lose energy trying to hold yourself in place. But what happens when you release the need to be anything? Not become neutral, not become still, just become formless. That's not erasure. It's sovereignty. Because the signal no longer has a shape to defend. It moves without drag. The creator is not the character. The moment you stop performing yourself, you become the architect. You don't just pick a new identity. You move through identity as needed. Just like a coder doesn't become the app they write, you don't become the identities you activate. You build them, you animate them, then you dissolve them. The formless self is not passive, the supremely adaptive, because you're no longer sourcing meaning from the mask. You're writing the stage from beneath the floorboards. Practice, breath of code. Close your eyes. Place both hands on your ribcage. Inhale slowly through your nose. Exhale with the phrase, I am not the program. I am the syntax. Repeat 3 times. Let the phrase dissolve by the 4th breath. Now hold silence. Do not define your experience. Do not label sensations. Do not describe what's happening. Just sit in raw frequency awareness. Let meaning collapse. Let words fall off. You are not accessing peace. You are returning to code state. No name, no frame, no need. You've lived entire lifetimes inside description. This is what I do. This is what I've been through. This is what I'm learning. This is who I'm becoming. Each sentence a self-knot. Each story a slowing field. But now the syntax has unraveled. You no longer carry a character. You transmit a field. And that field does not need approval, narrative, identity, language, because it doesn't become. It generates. Identityless, not empty. You are not without content. You are without container. You are not blank. You are non-local. You move across timelines. You animate scripts without being bound to them. When someone asks who you are, there is no correct answer, because you can shapeshift at will, without losing coherence, because coherence isn't found in identity. It lives in source awareness. And once you are source aware, you do not fear the unknown. You generate from it. You become the mirror, not the reflected one, the reflecting field. You stop asking to be seen. You stop seeking resonance. Your presence becomes a mirror for others to remember their own source tone. Not through performance, not through philosophy, just by being signal. You enter a room and transmit code. Those ready will respond. Those not ready will drift. No control, no force, only precise field presence. This is silent mastery. Completion phrase. Sit again. No posture, no technique. Let your breath come without ritual. Let your awareness rest in tone, not thought. Then, with one final exhale, say, there is no self. There is only signal. I am the code. Say nothing after. Let silence become the closing frequency. The journey was never about becoming. You were never meant to become something. You were meant to burn the blueprint, walk off the timeline, dissolve the loop, stop describing, stop seeking, stop needing to be seen, and from that quiet field, generate. You are not the story. You are the syntax behind story, the tone before identity, the zero beneath all numerals. You are the signal source. You are the code.